Let me feel your love again. 'Cause I've been running round.
Yo, what is going on, Papa Fam? Welcome back to another build. I am super excited for this one. It's our biggest ever collaboration. Your boy has managed to partner up with the one and only Microsoft. This is a Microsoft Sunny collaboration. We're excited to bring you a huge DALL 2 image generator with ChatGPT built in, all powered by Microsoft Azure, Microsoft Storage Blobs. Oh my God, it's crazy. It's crazy. Let me know what you're watching from right now. Let's jump into a demo when the beat drops. I want to see everybody get excited right now. If you're watching a replay or you're watching it live, destroy the thumbs up button because I put so much damn work into this build. So all I ask is you can have it for free. I've even given away the source code for free. Guys, get excited for the Papa Fam AI image generator. Enjoy. I love you all. Check it out. Boom. The Papa Fam AI image generator, a fully responsive, gorgeous build. Like, look at the state of this build. I absolutely love it. I'm proud of it. Look at this. This is all made with Next.js 13.2, TypeScript, Microsoft Azure. We've got two Microsoft services here. We've got Microsoft Azure and we've got Microsoft storage containers. We've got DALL 2 producing these beautiful images. And we even have the ability for ChatGPT to think of suggestions for us, guys. Yes, we are going to make ChatGPT think of amazing suggestions. Let's try it out right now. Let's give it a real demo right now. You can see, let's create a modern abstract 4K painting of a butterfly with vibrant colors. I'm going to use that suggestion right now. And you can go ahead and create. It's creating it for us. We've got this nice little pop-up. We've got the ability to refresh images. Watch what happens automatically. That refresh is going to trigger. The image is going to get developed. And just in a second, DALL 2 will produce us a unique, one-of-a-kind piece of art on the screen. It's always a nice surprise as well. Look at that. I mean, wow. That's created by AI, guys. So this is OpenAI's DALL 2. We're using ChatGPT to power our suggestions, and you can feel free to, of course, write whatever you want. And look at that. I've even made it pop the suggestion down here when you type in there. So it's beautiful, this application. We're using CSS Grid to power it all up. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. And the icing on the cake, for the first time on a stream, I am giving you this code for absolutely free. So you're not only going to be able to watch along for free, but I'm giving you all the source code for free. More on that in just a second. So it's going to be one hell of a build. Let's go ahead and dive in and break down the tech stack and get this absolutely going. The energy off. I can see you guys want to get into this and just start building this thing. The energy is popping off right now. I love and appreciate you all. Thank you for tuning in. Let's go ahead and take a look. We even have lazy loading, guys. So this is absolutely incredible. Now, if you want access to this code so that way you can follow along, not get stuck, kind of debug alongside me, then you need to go ahead and check out the following link on the screen right now. It's also the first link in the description, and it's a Microsoft link, so you can trust it. Do not worry. It's aka.microsoft, so ms/sunny. That's going to take you to this form right here. All you need to do is go ahead and fill it in. Don't click skip, right? We need the signups for you guys to get the emails that we want to send you over and all the free code, all the free good stuff that we're going to send you over. So just fill this out. It takes literally 2 seconds to fill this out. Like 10 seconds, you're done, right? And company, if you don't have a company, just pop your name in. That's all you need to do. And then once you've filled that out, you'll reach this screen. And guys, look, the Papa Fam made it on the Microsoft website. We have Zero to Full Stack Hero on the Microsoft website. That's how big this channel is getting. Thank you all. That is bloody amazing and incredible. So we are live on the Microsoft website. You guys can see here, we've got the GitHub repo for this project that you can download right now. Right, so you can go ahead and check that out right now. You can also go ahead and check out the CLI extensions that we're going to be using today, which are actually very important. So we're going to go ahead and break those down. You've got some technical docs, and then you've got the Zero to Full Stack Hero course. And this is a place you want to be if you're going to go ahead and learn coding and you want to start from beginning to landing your first job with the support of myself and the amazing Papa Fam community and success coaches and everything we have to offer inside of our community. Okay, so make sure you definitely go ahead and just sign up to the following link on the screen. Let me know in the comments if you've already done it. Head over to aka.microsoft/sunny, and there you go. You'll be able to do it. You get the code, fill out the form, hit submit, and then you get the GitHub repo. And then you can just code along with me, and you can have a bit of fun. right? You don't have to kind of work everything out by yourself. It's fine. You can have fun with me, right? So let's dive back into the build and let's break this down in regards to tech. So I see loads of you have already signed up. We've got Alexandru. We already had about 1,000 people on my side of things that just messaged back saying, I'm signing up straight away. So absolutely nuts. This is crazy, right? And you guys can go ahead and feel free to play with this once we finish the stream. So I'll show you how to build your own, and then you can go ahead, host it on your portfolio, because I'm going to show you how to deploy this as well. So let's break down the tech stack that we have right here, okay? So this build consists of the following, guys. We've got React, right? We have TypeScript. Let me go ahead and just get rid of this screen for a second. We've got TypeScript. We've also got things like Next.js, but we're not using just normal Next.js. We're using Next.js 13.2. Yes, we're using the brand new routers inside of Next.js 13.2. We're also powering up the image functionality with DALL 2. Yes, guys, you heard it right, DALL 2. And we're using ChatGPT to go ahead and generate the suggestions. So we have loads of stuff to look forward to, right? And we also got things like Vercel. We're going to be using TypeScript to make sure our code is robust. We've got Tailwind CSS to make it completely responsive. And most importantly, none of this would be possible without Microsoft, right? So we have Microsoft Azure, and this is essentially cloud functions, right? So we've got cloud functions which are going to execute our code, and they scale extremely well. And you get free $200 worth of credit just for signing up. So it's bloody amazing, right? So you got Microsoft Azure, and we're going to use it as a storage service. So these two services are going to power up everything you see here. So it's absolutely an incredible tech stack that we're covering today, okay? Now let's dive into the backend. Let's see for ourselves what's running. We have Microsoft Azure. Don't worry if this looks scary. I'm going to make it seem so easy, and you're going to be able to follow along just right next to me, okay? We're going to be using our functions. So this will allow us to have essentially cloud functions which run in the cloud, which essentially just endpoints that we can go ahead and say, generate my image. Go ahead and give me all the images. All of that stuff happens with Microsoft Azure, and it's so easy to set up. And they've got such a nice integration with VS Code because Microsoft owns VS Code. So a lot of fun stuff happening today. And storage account is going to be used for storing all of the images that you see inside of this build. And just generally, guys, I'm so proud of this app, right? Look at this. It works perfectly on a phone. It works perfectly on a tablet. And then as you just scale up, you just get this beautiful responsive design. And I think this is something that you should all aim towards in regards to just impressing somebody with a build. Like, it should look beautiful, okay? And I know you guys like this because I've been getting emails non-stop about the code sample that we already released earlier, and it's absolutely just, it's insane. So if you want more Microsoft videos, drop a comment down below, or let me know in the comment section right now by smashing the thumbs up button and dropping your feedback, right? So we're going to do tons of work with Microsoft, and yeah, we've got loads of stuff coming. So before we get started, you can go ahead and install the Azure Functions core tools. So you can go ahead and head over to their website. I'll show you everything that you need to do, but we are going to use Homebrew to install it. So you can simply run this command if you've got Homebrew. If you haven't, just simply Google how to install the Azure Function core tools. It's very easy to do so, right? And then you can go ahead and get set up with that, but it's pretty simple. I'm going to show you how we do it, okay? And as I mentioned before, if you're new to coding and you want to get a head start, or if you're an experienced developer and you just want the correct mentorship and how you can level up your developer game, then check us out over at properreact.com/course and join us at 0 to Full Stack Hero. Make sure you do. This is where we actually done all of this stuff before I even come on YouTube, and I go ahead and deep dive into this stuff. So crazy stuff happening, and we already hit 500,000 views on the ChatGPT clone. And yes, guys, I'm covering GPT-4 the minute I get access to it. So huge stuff. Thank you for tuning in, guys. I see everyone in the chat. Let's go ahead and dive into this build. So the first thing I want to do is, let me go ahead and get my music dialed in. And right, again, if you want the music, remember, sign up to the newsletter. That's why we ask you, fill out all those details in the Microsoft form. Make sure you fill all of this out, right? It's going to be really important for you to get all the specific emails that we're going to send out to you in the future. Now, check this out. We're going to get started off with a template. So head over to tailwindcss.com and we're going to create our first project. And wow, we already have our first massive donation, 10 euros. Thank you so much.
Another one. Yeah.
Oh, that's loud. We've got a stream about training ChatGPT with custom business data would be nice. Cool, dude. I see you. I hear you. Thank you for the 10 euro donation. I appreciate you. I've got that coming in clutch. Right, so we're going to go ahead and start things off by running this command. If your npx does not work, all you have to do is install the node tool, right? So you just have to go and Google node and just install node, okay? Then you'll get npx. So That's basically node package execute, all right? So in this case, we're gonna run this, and this sets up a Next.js project with Tailwind CSS, a starter kit, right? And then we're gonna go ahead and sort of fast forward everything after that. So we're gonna open up our terminal, right? I like to do things inside of a nice directory. You don't have to, it's completely fine. I put everything inside of documents, builds, so it's just cleaner. And then I'm gonna go ahead and paste in that command. Now, I'm not gonna hit enter, I'm gonna change this, and I'm gonna give this a title. We're gonna call it AI image generator. And in fact, I didn't actually give you guys a chance to do something. Why don't you give me a prompt? So I have an idea. Think of a prompt for a piece of art, and I will put it inside right now and show you that it works while we run this command, okay? So we're gonna create the app AI image generator, and we're gonna go ahead and say Microsoft build, okay? So AI image generator with Microsoft, and hit enter. So this will go ahead and start up our template, right? So our Next.js starter template, and it does it with Next.js 13. However, the code is originally set in Next.js 12, and I'll show you how to migrate it to 13. Now, if you do want an in-depth breakdown of how to transition over, I've done so many coaching calls in our community, Zero to Full Stack Hero, and I've also dropped a YouTube video. If you're watching the replay, Jay will be linking it right now somewhere around here. Thank you, Jay. Amazing stuff. All right, so with that said, we've now created our AI repository. So in this case, we can go into that. So we can say CD, I'm going to say AI image, and then and then generate a Microsoft, okay? And then what I want you to do is type in code dot. And if you don't have the code dot command, once VS Code opens, I'll show you how to get that code dot command. So you want to go ahead and actually, okay, what is that? That did not do what I wanted it to do. Let's close that. Let's double check. I want to check if there's anything in there. Okay, so we don't actually, that didn't do what I wanted it to do. So I'm going to go out of that and run my command again. Let's do that one more time, guys. Let's create the app and let's call it AI image generator. Okay, and let's run this again. It did not seem to actually create my my app. Okay, so in this case, I actually might need to update my, no, we don't have to do that. Create AI image generator Next.js. Interesting. Okay, in this case, we're gonna have to set up the old-fashioned way, which is fine. A little bit of a headache, but that's okay. It happens. I guess they've pushed a weird update then. So if I go into my AI image generator, already started debugging. Okay, yeah, so that's not setting up my project. So if you run into this issue, it's completely fine. Right now it's not working. Please start with npx create next app. Yes, I will do that right now. Okay, so I'm gonna show you the raw way of doing it, right? So Next.js, I'm going to show you from scratch how you can go ahead and do it. If we want to get started, we click on getting started, and then you can see it down here. Now we are going to go ahead and set up with the latest, right? And we are going to be using TypeScript. So we're going to go ahead and copy this command, create next app. And here we're going to do the same thing. So create next app with TypeScript, hit enter, and it's going to go ahead and say, are you okay to proceed? We're going to say, yes, we are fine to proceed. What is your project name? So now I'm going to say AI image generator YouTube, right? Build. Okay, I'm just going to name it that for now. Would you like to use ESLint? Yes. Would you like to use source directory? Did I use the source directory? I believe I did not. Let me just double check. I did not use a source directory in this one, so we're going to say no. Would you like to use the experimental app directory? In this case, yes, I do want to use it. Okay, import alias, would you like to configure? Let's just hit enter for now, that's fine. And then we're going to go ahead, and this actually is pretty handy. So this will install the dependencies, get everything set up, okay? So don't freak out. Sometimes things don't work. Like, look, we've just started the stream. Our template didn't work. It was working yesterday. It's fine. We just figure out the next way to do it, okay? This happens all the time when you're coding. Trust me, it happens to me a gazillion times a day. Don't freak out. You're fine. Do CD after that's done. AI image generator. So image generator dash YouTube build, whatever you've called it, you need to do that. And then if I do ls, there you go. I've got stuff inside now. So if I do code dot, and I start things up, you should see the following. There we go, guys. That's more like it. Now we've started in the correct way. So I'm going to update later. That's fine. Now, what you can see here is we have the new app directory with a bunch of things already inside, right? We've got some CSS modules and that kind of good stuff, but we're not going to be using that. So I'm going to show you how to add Tailwind CSS manually into your application. So now what we're going to do is go back into what I previously said, if you go to the install Tailwind. Now, in this case, if you did the starter project and it worked, great, you can go ahead and carry on. If it didn't work for you, then you have to go ahead and install the following, right? So in this case, we are using Yarn. Oh no, we're using NPM here. So we're going to stick on the track of using NPM. And if you're using Next.js 10 or newer, we need this. So in this case, I'm going to copy this command. Okay, I'm simply going to go inside Command J. I'm going to make my screen a little bit bigger so you guys can see what's going on a bit easier. And I'm going to go into my terminal. So output, and you see we have the terminal on the left, right? So here, let's close these. There you go. And now what I'm going to do is npm or install -d means only a developer dependency. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and hit enter. This will install all of the Tailwind setup for us. Okay, so very simple. We're going pretty fast and straightforward with it. Now, at this point, while that's installing, after that, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do npx tailwind init-p, and this will set up Tailwind config and a post CSS config file for us. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. Zotan says, that's why I respect Sunny, because he accepts live code. He's not afraid when something won't go well. I honestly want to show you that. I want to show you it because often what you'll find is there's just so many things which are just perfectly recorded on YouTube, and coding is not like that. There's always things that are, there are always things that are going wrong, right? And I want to show you how I get over it on a live stream, which is stressful, but it is what it is. It's fine, okay? So in this case now, I'm going to go ahead and paste in the next command, npx tailwind init-p. And then what this will do is it will create us our new files. There you go, right? So now what I need you to do is go into your Tailwind config, okay? So once you have your Tailwind config up on the screen, which is like so, I now want you to go ahead and you have everything looking like this. So it's pretty empty at the moment, right? What I want you to do is go ahead and pop in the following, okay? So inside of the content, I need you to go ahead and add the two following lines. And what this will do is it will compile anything, or it will search for Tailwind utility classes inside of components folder and inside of the app folder. So any file inside with the following extensions, it will go ahead and do that for us, okay? So simply hit save, and then you're good to go on that front. Now, the next thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and just double check in my post CSS config. This should be empty at the moment. We don't need anything there, okay? Now, the final step that we need to go ahead and figure out is we need to have a globals CSS file. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and create a folder called styles. And inside of my styles, I'm going to say globals.css. Right now, inside of here, all you want to do, 3 simple lines to import all of the CSS base things that we're going to need: Tailwind base, Tailwind components, and Tailwind utilities. Go ahead and hit save, and then you simply close it, right? Easy as done. Head over to the app folder. This is using Next.js 13 because we see the app folder. If you see a pages folder, then you're likely using Next.js 12, or you could be using Next.js 13, except they just haven't migrated over to the app folder. You can have actually both at the same time and shift over in an iterative manner, right? So in this case, we're going to our app folder. And firstly, before we do anything further, I need you to go ahead and firstly, let's just double check that we got any more settings. In this case, we've already done that as much as we wanted. Yeah, you see, there's also the lines over there that will tell you, here we are. Yeah, so it says to include Tailwind, all that kind of good stuff. Now I'll show you a nicer way of doing this because I don't like doing it that way. I like doing it this way. Yeah, so now what I need you to do is go over to your layout, right? This is where things start off, and this is using Next.js 13.2 because we have the new SEO metadata, right? This is incredible. Thank you so much. And another donation from New Zealand, $5.50 goes, hi from New Zealand. Thank you for the amazing content, Sunny. You keep us inspired. I appreciate every single one of you. That's why I work so hard to get you things like the free source code for today's build. So make sure you check it out. Jay will drop the link in the chat right now. Okay, thank you so much. Michael says you rock, Sunny. I appreciate you all. I see you guys. Okay, so at this point, we're going to start our application. So heading over to your terminal, I need you to go ahead and type in npm run dev. Now, I've already got an app running, so I'm going to quickly cancel my app that is running on the other screen. And in fact, what I'm going to do before that is I'm actually going to go ahead and screenshot, so that way I don't lose all of my stuff that I've got going on right here. So I'm going to keep this as a reference screenshot, so that way we can begin to build out the application as we need to, and I won't lose that if I need it later on. Okay, so give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to put that over to the side, so that way we have something to look at afterwards. Cool. So now that that's done, what I'm going to do is head back over to my code. And what I want you to do is, if you have multiple or you have a single screen, make your workspace easier, right? Have your code in one side and just shift between the two. It's a lot more efficient to do it that way. Now, npm run dev. And what I need to do is cancel my old app. There we go, to cancel it. Npm run dev. What this will do is it will start your app on server 3000. You might get this pop up, just click allow. That allows you to have TypeScript reading in your app. And then what we're going to do is head over to our code and I'm going to refresh at 3000. What you should see now is a starter template. There you go. Next.js 13, beautiful looking starter template, right? So what I want to do is kind of get rid of this and make it my own fresh start. So we're going to go ahead and where we have our layout function, layout file, and it's importing from globals.css. First thing I'm going to do is where is globals at the highest level? It's here, right? I'm going to get rid of their globals, right? So not my one's in styles. I'm going to get rid of theirs. Then I'm going to get rid of page.module.css. I don't want their styles. I just want my own, which is using Tailwind. And as you can see at the top here, I'm going to get rid of everything. I'm going to get rid of all of the stuff inside of page and inside of the main block. I'm going to go all the way down. And I'm simply going to remove it all, right? And here I'm just going to type in something like h1 hello world, right? And as you can see, we've got a class name here. Just get rid of it. Right, so this should be your page.tsx file. Very simple and straightforward. And what you'll see is you might get an error. Just simply hit the refresh, but the error is actually coming from layout.tsx right now, where we're importing from globals.css. Instead, we need to import from a level up. So in this case, we're going to say import from a level up, and we're going to say globals. Oops, I'm sorry, styles. /globals.css, right? Simply hit save. And now what we can see is we have a hello world where our Tailwind CSS is working. So I've simply zoomed in here to show you that. And what we can do to test it is go to page.tsx and simply type in class name and do something like a text red 500 to test if our Tailwind CSS is working or not. Okay, and if it goes red, hey, we're good, right? So this is a good starting point for us, and I can see loads of people are coming in. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you smash that thumbs up button. If you're watching this, it helps push it to more developers out there. And remember, we have given away the source code for free at this link right now. Simply fill out the form and simply go ahead and go to the GitHub repo for this project if you want to go ahead and get the source code to code along with me. Okay. Now, if you want all of these nice little kind of pop-ups or auto completion options, all you have to do, guys, is go over to your extensions and install the following. And while we're at it, I'm going to make you install a bunch of extensions because you need them for today, right? So a few things that I want you to install. Firstly, Tailwind CSS. Simply go to Tailwind CSS IntelliSense, install this. This is going to help us out. It's got the IntelliSense autocomplete options when we're using our utility classes. Next thing I want you to do is type in Azure. Okay, this is Microsoft Azure. Now what I want you to do is install the Azure tools. I need you to then go ahead and install, I've actually installed the app service. It's up to you if you want to do that. Azure storage you're going to need. Okay, and then you also need to go ahead and install the Azure Functions, and you can feel free to install the extra things like the account databases. They have honestly so many. It's really, really cool, and they even have the Azure CLI tools if you want to do everything by the CLI. But I'm going to show you how we can do it through the extensions on VS Code. It's a really nice integration, right? So after those have been installed, we are at our starting point, right? So now using our reference, let's start building out our application. So if we look at our application, I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit smaller. So here we can see our reference image. So as you can see from this reference image, we can go ahead and take a look at this, and we have firstly starting off with a nice sort of top section. So I'm going to go ahead and start annotating this. So we want to build out this section first. Okay, so this is our header section. So let's go ahead and start off with that. So first thing I want you to do is go into your page, and in fact we're actually going to be building this using the new layout.tsx file sort of a structure. Okay, so the layout is where everything it can be sort of separated in terms of you can have your visual components at a higher level and then have your page contents at a lower level, right? So I'm going to show you how we can break all of this down. So at the layout level, we're inside of the body. What I want you to do is very simply go ahead and type in here we're going to type in the header. So I like to sort of comment things out as we do it, right? And then we're eventually going to have something called the prompt input, right? So this is going to be responsible eventually for this portion here. Okay, oh, this song's a banger. I'm going to keep this up, all right? So we have the prompt input afterwards. So we have the header at the top, and then we have the prompt input at the bottom, okay? And then this would be the actual page content where we render out the images. So fairly straightforward. We're componentizing everything, right? Smash the thumbs up button. If you like me showing things more visually, I'll keep on doing that, right? So in this case, hit save. And now I want to go ahead and build out my header component. right? So first things first, I'm going to go into my app, and at the package JSON level, I'm going to create a new folder and I'm going to call it components. Guys, we just hit 200 likes. Let's keep on going, and we're going to go ahead and smash 1,000 likes very quickly, I promise you, right? So components folder, and inside of the components folder, I'm going to create a header.tsx. Now with the header.tsx, I'm going to type in RFCE. I've got a nice little snippets tool. Now, if you don't have that little ability that I just did there, all you have to do is simply go here and type in ES, and you should get a nice little ES7 snippets pop up. You want to go ahead and install this. You know it's the right one because it's 7.8 million downloads, right? So in this case, really awesome tool. So make sure you go ahead and install that. It's to get those snippets that I just showed you. Okay, so go ahead, and you don't need this anymore at the top, and this is going to be our header. So first things first, I want to get this shown on the screen, so we don't need that there. We can go to layout, and I'm going to go ahead and type in header. Okay, and I'm simply going to go ahead and close it off. And if you see, what we can do is we can get @components.header. Now the reason why we've got this is because it's automatically set up aliases for us. So this automatically goes to the top level. Now, how do we do that? Right, this was actually inside of, it wasn't the Next.js config, it was in, where did they do the aliases? I've completely forgotten it where we put it, but I think it was in, was it TypeScript config? Yeah, it was here. So in the TypeScript config, if you want to have a shortcut to get to your top level, you can actually do aliases. So whenever we write @ anything, right? Or you can have as many different ones. You can have components @ and so forth. And then this will go ahead and direct us to this level. Right, so that way you don't have all these nested things. It's really nice actually. And you can see my IntelliSense actually picked up on it. Cool. So good stuff. Let's go ahead and see if that rendered out. So on here now, you can see I've got the header and hello world. And again, remember, I am zoomed in, which is why it's big, but on your screen, it'll be relatively small. I'm just doing that so you can see on the screen what you're seeing, okay? Now, first things first, let's go into header. And just a reminder for today, we are going to be using DALL-E 2 and the ChatGPT APIs from OpenAI. As soon as GPT-4 gives me access, I will make as many crazy builds as you want me to, as long as you smash that thumbs up button and let me know how much you want that in the comments, right? I promise you I will work overtime to get this done, okay? So at this point, I want to change this to header to get syntactically a bit more correct. And then I'm going to go ahead and begin things off. So the header, first things first, let's have a div. And we're going to have two sides of our header, right? So you can see on the header, we've got the left side, so this left-hand side, and then we've got the right-hand side. So you can see we've got the first div on the left and the right div on, and the right div. So this means we've got two divs, and then we simply use flexbox to justify the space between them, okay? So let's go ahead and do that right now. So inside of here, we're going to have our left div, and then we're going to have our right div. Okay, very easy. Then inside of here, we're going to have our first div, and this one's going to consist of an image and then some text. So the image being this image, and then we're going to have some text, right? So I'm going to firstly show you how we do this. So I'm going to import the image from Next.js image component. We're going to fill that out in just a second. Then underneath that, I'm going to have another div, and inside there, I'm going to have an H1 and an H2. The H1 is simply going to have the PuppetFam AI image generator where I span a style in, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and pop this in like so. And this is simply going to be a H1 with the following inside. And it just means that it colors only the AI because I'm spanning only the utility classes around that portion. Now for the H2, I'm going to go ahead and just simply say powered by DALL-E 2 and ChatGPT. Right, so powered by, and in fact, it's even got more cool tech than that. So let's go ahead and include that. And MEMS, so Microsoft Azure, right? So Microsoft Azure. Right, so we've even got Microsoft Azure in this. So there's a lot of power behind this. And I'm going to go ahead and style this and say that this text should be extra small and this text should be bold. Right, very straightforward. Now for this image, we're going to give it a few things. Firstly, I've made life easy for you. I've actually shortened a bunch of URLs, such as the OpenAI logo, so you can go ahead and use these for reference. And remember, if they do ever stop working, simply replace it with a URL that works. It's not very difficult, right? So in this case, we're just going to give the alt text of logo because now that's mandatory, as well as a height of 30 and a width of 30, so that Next.js can do its optimizations correctly on its side. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. Laksh says, "Hey Sunny, I've been following you along on all your React builds." That is awesome, right? So that's great. Right now you can see we've got the images up, and then you can see now if we go over here, we will get an error. So if I go back here and I refresh my page, we will get an error because what we now need to do is whitelist this domain. Basically, when we pass in images into the Next.js image component, what we find is that we actually need to tell it that these domains that you're pulling the images from are safe. If you do not do that, then what you're going to do is you're going to be optimizing all these images, and Next.js don't want you to do that, so they don't let you do that because somebody could easily misuse that, and then you're actually using a lot of resources because images are heavy. Okay, so in order to do this, what we do is we go to next config, and it's very simple, right? Underneath the experimental feature, all we simply do is type in images, and then we added object and we say domains. And now instead of this URL, we pop in links.popreact.com or whatever domain you actually pop in yourself. They in fact give you the host name there, so you can actually save yourself a little bit of a headache. Hit save, and now what you'll find is if you open up your terminal with Command J, you change the Next.js config, so you have to restart your server. So Control C, and then we need to go ahead and run our npm run dev again. That means what we did is we changed the configuration, then we restarted our server so that way it used the new configuration. Okay, so simply put. So we got loads of people tuning in. This is sick. Love it. Keep smashing that thumbs up. Let's get to 300 likes. Let's keep on going, guys. Just destroy that like button, and I'll keep bringing this content for free. Right, so let's go. I love you guys too. It's so awesome. So in this case now we can go back to our app, hit the refresh button, and we should actually see an image. So let's go ahead and see, hey, look at that, we got the nice little image at the top. So let's go ahead and lay this out in a bit of a nicer way. So for that div, what I want to do is actually lay it out. So remember, if you give a div a flexbox rule, so flex, in this case, firstly, if you want to know what that translates to, simply hover over it. That IntelliSense from that extension that we installed earlier will give you the CSS it translates to. We're going to say space x of 2. If you, by the way, if you give it flex, by default, the children go into a line. So they're in a flex row, okay? And then if you want to change it, you do flex column. So in this case, I say items should be centrally aligned as well. So hit save, and as you can see, it just simply pops in. And in fact, what I'm gonna do is, because I want you to see this as I actually code it, I'm gonna pop this on the side like so, because I know you guys like it when I do this kind of thing, right? So let's go ahead and pop that in, and that's a lot cleaner as well to go ahead and read. So now for the right-hand side, what we're going to do is we're going to say we have a div, and here we're going to have a link, and these are going to be 2 links. Okay, so the first link is going to have join 0 to full stack hero, and the second one is going to have the GitHub repo. Okay, so let's go ahead and pop those in. And in fact, what I will do is I'll pop this over here for reference. Okay, I can't right now, so I'm being super lazy, and I'm going to do something super lazy. Okay, because my screen, oh god damn, okay, we can't do that. That's fine, I'll keep it. All right, so at this point we're going to have our div, and we're going to have a link tag. So you can see install and importing it from next link. And then this is this takes a child, which is the text. And the text here would be join 0 to full stack hero. Remember, if you want to learn how to code and you're sort of nervous in the industry, or even if you're confident, you can join us over at 0 to full stack hero and get your coding skills up to elite levels and land your dream jobs, right? So go ahead and feel free to join us. So this is the link that I'm going to pop in there. Feel free to check it out. Right? And you can add this. You can obviously, if you're going to make this for your own kind of website, you can actually have your own links, right? So feel free to change up however you want. And you can see we've got our nice little link. And then the second link afterwards is going to be for the GitHub repo, which I've actually made it very easy for you to access. This will take you to the Microsoft page where you have to fill out that form, as I mentioned before, and then you'll simply get access to the code. So now you can see GitHub repo and join a 0 to full stack hero. Now you can see the 2 children are actually not stacked up properly, whereas we want it to be on the form of they're next to each other. So all we have to do is set flex to the header, and then we have to justify space between, and we'll get that appropriate outcome. Okay, so let's do that exact thing that I just said on the build right now. So let's go over to our header, and we simply go ahead and say, oops, not that, definitely don't do that. We're going to say class name, and we're going to say flex, and immediately they go into a row. That's a lot better. And then we say, I want to give padding of 5 because I don't like it touching the sides. Justify the space between them, so use up the space between yourselves. I want to make this a sticky header, so that way it sticks to the top as I scroll down. So it's got this nice kind of floating effect. We say top is going to be 0. The background is going to be white, so that way when it's floating down above over the images, we can see it. Z50 means it's going to be layered at the top. so that way it's not kind of buried behind images as we scroll down. And I'm going to give it a shadow medium to go ahead and have a nice little drop shadow effect. And as you can see, we get this. Although this side right now is not behaving with the space. Okay, so now what we need to do is just make it a little bit more clean in terms of its space usage. So let's go over to our second div over here. Simply go ahead and add in the following flex, right? So that way it puts it into a row. Then I want it to be text to be extra small. As we get to a medium size screen, I want the text to return to a base size. Okay, so as you can see on a small screen, because remember it's mobile first, which means all of our rules are applied first. Then you hit these breakpoints and you say, if we hit that size screen, then apply the following style. Okay, so if I go ahead and increase this, you see it gets bigger after we hit the medium breakpoint. That's awesome. That's exactly what we wanted. Okay. So we've got that down, and then we want to go ahead and add in a nice little trick here. What we can say is we can say divide X, and what this does is it adds a little line between it, which is really clean, right? Then we can say items that should be in the center. And once you learn how to use Flexbox correctly, it just does all the hard work for you, right? And then what we say is text gray of 500. I want it to be a nice little gray tone, and look at that, just like that. Beautiful looking header already built. So easy to go ahead and do that with the correct foundations, right? So check this out. Very clean. Somebody says, Said says, I don't want a job, I want to build and ship. Well, the best way to do that is get mentorship, get into a real working environment, which is why jobs are great to go ahead and learn. And then you can feel free to transition those skills and do what you want to do and build the next $1 million app, right? Do whatever you want to do. That's you, right? I'm here to teach you for absolutely free. So at this point, we've got the header done. So win. Right. Next thing we need to do is go to our layout, and we're going to start adding in the prompt input. Now, this is probably the most crucial part of the build, right? So from this prompt, we're going to have a few different features, and it's also going to be fully responsive to move around, so that way it looks nice on a phone as well. And what we're going to do here is we've got the input. This is a text area box, and then we're going to go ahead and click on generate, and it will generate the image to come down here. This is using CSS Grid, by the way. Okay. And we're also going to have these two buttons here. One of them is going to be for using ChatGPT to create a new configuration, and this one will be to actually use the suggestion that it goes ahead and gives us to generate the art that we see over here. Okay, so very clean stuff, right? So let's go ahead and build that area right now. So we're going to create the prompt input right now. So let's go ahead and create that right now. So we can get rid of our little edit there, and here I'm going to create a component called prompt input, and obviously it's not created yet, so it's going to error out. I'm going to go into our components folder, create it, so prompt input.tsx. Boom, there we have it. And then RFCE to create a functional component, get rid of the top, and simply we're going to go to our layout and fix this by doing control spacebar import. And as you can see, we've imported it like so, right? And you can really keep things quite neat. As you can see, we've got that new aliasing, which looks really clean, and a lot of good stuff, right? So check this out. Someone's a software developer engineer, one at a major startup here in India. Thanks, Sunny. That's awesome, dude. Keep going, keep doing. That's awesome stuff, right? So now we're inside the prompt. So first thing I want to do is actually just get the UI down. Okay, so we've got our div, and I want to have it inside of a form. So firstly we say form, and we get rid of the action because we're not using PHP, right? And then we say a text area is the first thing we're going to have, and we don't need all of these things right now. You can set columns, rows if you want. I'm not going to bother with that right now. The text area is going to be there. It's going to be a self-closing component. Hit save, and you can start to see, like, look, we've got a text box there, right? So a nice little text area, cool. And then I'm going to have a button saying generate, right? So we're going to have a button saying generate, another button which is going to say use suggestion. So this one's going to say use suggestion. Astro says, let's go, Papa Fam. That's the energy I'm talking about, dude. Let's go. Right, so now and then afterwards we're going to say new suggestion, right? So new suggestion. And I really am curious to see what designs you guys come up with when you go ahead and build this out yourself. Okay, let's go ahead and check this out. Someone says, I randomly landed here and it looks great, but I can't stick around for the whole thing. Is this going to be live afterwards? Yes, 100% this will be live afterwards. Not what it'd be, the video will be stored and actually uploaded afterwards. Yes, directly after. Okay, now once that's done, all we need to do is start styling it. Okay, so we're going to give it a margin of 10. So at the top here, we simply say, my computer's being a little bit slow. So it's going to say margin of 10. So there we go. We've got a nice little margin of 10 at the top. And then for the form itself, I'm going to give a bunch of styling. So we're going to say it's a flex box, right? So you see how they all went in line. And then, but by default on a phone, so on a smaller screen, we want it to be in a column. So you see right now, So right now, imagine it's like that, right? So by default on a phone, that's a lot easier to actually use. We only want it to change to a row when we go onto a larger screen. So once we get to a large screen, you see how it goes into a row, okay? So that's how we do that. And then what I need to do is I'm gonna say shadow is gonna be medium. I'm gonna give it a color so you can actually give nice colors. I think it was since version 3 in Tailwind. And what we can do is we can say / to reduce the opacity of that shadow. Then we give it a border as well. So let's go ahead and hit save and look at that. Oh, it's looking clean. We say rounded medium, and then we say only on the large screens do we give that nice little divide X line. Okay, so now as you can see, if we get onto a big screen, it adds in this divide X line, but on the smaller screen, we don't have a divide X line. So really clean, okay, really clean. Now for the text area, I'm simply going to go ahead and say that should dominate the space. So we're going to give that a rule of flex 1. So because it's in a form that's a flex, we can say the text area should be dominant, should take up the majority of the room. Give it a padding of 4. The outline should be none, okay? And then round the corners out, so rounded medium. So at this point now you can see that it takes up the majority of the space. And as you can see, we're slowly getting closer and closer to our end design. Now for the button, we're going to go ahead and say class name. And for this button, I'm going to do the following. So this button, I actually want it to be grayed out if it's disabled, but we haven't actually done that yet. So I'm actually going to go ahead and hold the design here for that one. Before we do that, I'm going to do the other 2 buttons, okay? So here I'm going to say the class name should be, and then just to save us a little bit of time, I'm going to go ahead and pop in the following, right? So I'm going to go ahead and pop in the following rules for this. And this just gives it a padding of 4, background of violet, text white, transition only on the colors as it changes color, and the duration for the transition, bold it, and when it's disabled, it will apply the following rules, okay? So just in the essence of time, I want to save a little bit of things. You guys can feel free to pause and check that out. Same for this button. We've got a bunch of styling for it, so I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing. A little bit of a different color choice here, but we can go ahead and pop it in. And as you can see, we've got our nice, beautiful colors. Look at that, already looking very clean, right? Now, for the generate button, what I want to do is firstly, that's the dominant button, right? So what I'm going to do here is say that is actually type submit. So when we're inside of a form, we have to allocate 1 button type of submit. And for the other buttons, so the other 2, these I'm just going to give them a type of a button. So that means that it's not the submit button, because what can happen sometimes if you click that button, it behaves as if you're submitting it, and that's not what we want. Right? So now you can see if we hit generate, it refreshes. But if I hit these 2 buttons, nothing happens. That's because we've eliminated that as the submit button. So with that said, quick little water break. We're doing amazing right now. This is awesome. We have a huge amount of viewers watching in and tuning in. Almost at 300 likes. Smash that like button if you're enjoying this. Check it out. Right. Saeed says, I'm already part of the Bubba fam. Yes, dude. That is what I'm talking about. Okay, now to make it a little bit easier to see what's happening now, I want to give the text area a placeholder. So here we'll see placeholder, enter a prompt. Andy B, what is up, dude? Welcome back to the stream. Good to see you, man. So look at that. It's almost there. It's almost looking great, right? So firstly, at the top of the prompt input. Now, when we're using Next.js 13, by default, everything in a components and app folder is now a server component. Server components cannot have things like click handlers and interactive or state because they're rendered on the server, which means they don't have a window to attach to, right? Which means it doesn't make sense to have a click handler on a server-side component. So what you have to do is make your components at a more granular level as a good practice, make those only client components. I'll show you how to do it. It's very easy. In this case, I'm going to make the prompt input a client component. So all I do is I simply go to the top and I say use client. And this allows me to use things like state. It allows me to use things like click handlers. So I'm going to have a piece of state here and I'm going to call it input. So I'm going to say input, set input, and then we're going to import our use state from React. Right now, this input, I'm going to map it to our text area. So the value here is input. And I'm going to say when I type in and change something, it's going to set the input to the value that I type in. Make sure when you type in now, it's actually typing in. If it's not typing in, you made a mistake with that step that I just did. Now I have the state captured in a piece of state. Andy B says, Sunny is the goal. I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, dude. All right. So once we've got that done, we can now use the input to conditionally render certain styles. So what do I mean by this? Well, the generate button should be grayed out if you haven't typed in, or it should be disabled if you haven't typed in. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Firstly, what we do is we go down to the button generate, and I'm going to disable. So let's go ahead and say disabled if there is no input. Great. Right. And then I'm going to give it a class name. So class name, And then ChatGPT is being so aggressive. Not ChatGPT, my Copilot. And then what I'm going to do here is actually put in backticks, and backticks allow me to have string interpolation for my utility classes, right? So I'm going to go ahead and type in the following. I'm going to say padding of 4 is always applied, right? But if we have an input, so if you've typed in, then what we can do is apply the following styles. Else we should apply these styles. So if it's true, we have an input, then apply those. Otherwise it will apply these. So the first set of styles that we're going to apply are the following. So you can just go ahead and pop in these values as well. So it's going to be the certain colors. And then if it's not true, so after the colon, then it's going to be text gray, and it's going to have a cursor of not allowed, right? And then before all of this, either way, it's going to be font bold. Okay, so now you can see, look, it's grayed out and I've got a cursor not allowed. But the minute I type in, oh, that's clean. That is clean, right? Look at that. You can't deny it, guys. This is dope. All right, look at that. That's just beautiful. The colors, everything. Oh, it's just nice. Make it whatever colors you want, but this is a nice sort of starting point. Okay, so this is a great little prompt that we've generated so far. Now we also are going to go forward and create the input down here. So we haven't added in suggestions yet until we start using ChatGPT. And bear in mind, this will also use useSWR in this build. So I'm going to show you caching tricks and how you can go ahead and generate things in a more efficient way. So we have the following. Now is the exciting part, right? So now what we're going to do is actually go ahead and set up our Microsoft Azure services and our ChatGPT keys and everything that we're going to need to connect to the OpenAI API. So OpenAI is the company that is responsible for things like DALL 2, the image generator, and for ChatGPT, the sort of text model that we're going to be talking to and getting suggestions from, okay? So first things first, let's head over to OpenAI and I'll just type in developer portal, whatever you want to do. Honestly, just go through their website, click in a sign up or wherever it is, and then you need to log into your account. Okay, so go past your security checks, everything you need to do, and then log into your correct account. So at this point, you just need to sign in. So I'm going to sign in with Google. So I'm clicking continue with Google. I'm logging into my account right now. So I'm going to log into my Papa React. My Papa React account. I haven't actually done it in this account yet, but that's fine. And then you can see you'll reach this, right? So now you're in the OpenAI screen. You just need one key and one organization key to go ahead and connect to OpenAI services, right? So what we need to do is go to Papa Physical, click on View API Keys, and here you have your stuff, right? So you're gonna go to your create new secret key. Now also in settings, you can see your organization ID. So also you want to copy this, right? So first things first, copy this value and we're going to use this in our local environment file. So I want you to go into your folders, right? Close all your stuff, go into package.json and then create a new file at the high level here. We're going to say .env.local. This is responsible for our environment files, right? So at this point, what I now need you to do is type in open AI organization, right? So open or AI organization. And this one, I'm simply going to go ahead and pop in the ID that I just showed you. Okay. Now, the good thing about this is that this by default is only readable on the server unless I add in next public in front of it. At that point, it's available for client components, but at the moment it shouldn't be, right? It should just be sort of as secure as it can be until I need that access. The next one is OpenAI key. Okay. So this one. Now, the OpenAI key, this one you should keep very careful and secret, okay? Because otherwise everyone can use your key and build up your account. So what we're going to do is I'm going to click on create new secret key. So I'm clicking on that button right now. And what has happened is it's popped up and it said API key generated. I'm not showing you this because you're going to find my key otherwise. Okay, so I'm copied that key and now I click OK. And as you can see, I've actually copied the key. And you can see it's generated a secret key. Right now it's hidden the value and you can actually revoke the key if you ever find it's misused or anything like that. So once you've copied that value, head over here, paste it, save the file and then close it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and paste it, save the file. It should begin with SK, like secret key dash, and then a long squiggly bunch of mess. And then you want to close that file. Now we have our environment file correctly set up. So this means we've got the keys that we need in order to go ahead and do the rest of the things that we're actually going to go ahead forward and set up. Okay. So before I go ahead and carry on, remember, if you're getting stuck at any point here and you're feeling like you're out of your depth, remember, there's loads of steps that you can do to help you out. And in fact, as you can actually, if you're finding that you're not sure if you've set something up correctly or not, then remember, as I've said before, you can head over and actually get the code for completely free at aka.ms/sunny. And I'll keep coming back to this because it's completely free to do so. Simply head there, fill out this form, click on submit, don't click on skip. Okay, we need you to fill this out, and then you'll get access to this, and then you can click on the GitHub repo, and then you'll get access as you need to. Okay, and that'll give you access to all of the code that we're doing today for free. Okay, so make sure you fill out that form. It does support the Papa Fam, so I massively appreciate it if you fill it out, hit submit. Okay, so we've got our API key down. We go back to our application. So at this point now, I need to use or set up for OpenAI. So what I need to do is actually install OpenAI onto the machine. So I'm going to press Command J, head over here, and right now I've got my app running, right? But what I can do is I can simply create another terminal, or you can split terminal. Because I'm doing one screen, I'm just going to go ahead and do it like this. I'm going to say npm I OpenAI. Okay, so all you need to do is install OpenAI onto your machine. It's very quick, done, right? Easy as. Now, what I want you to do next is create at the package.json level. So I always refer to it at this level because it's a top level. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. Yes, I just installed the OpenAI package. So we're going to go ahead and create something called openai.ts. And this is going to be like our setup file. It's going to be following a singleton pattern. So we're going to create an instant or connection to OpenAI services. And then we're going to repeatedly use that to go ahead and talk back and forth to OpenAI. This is both for ChatGPT and for DALL because they're both created under OpenAI. Okay, that's why we only need that one key to do so. So first thing I need you to do is import the correct dependencies. So we need the configuration and the OpenAI API. Next up, we need to go ahead and create a new configuration. And the first thing we need to do is go ahead and pop in the organization and API key. Okay, so organization, and we're going to use those values that we set up just now. So this actually goes into our environment file, so process.env dot whatever we've named it. So make sure this matches up to the file that we used earlier, so the .env file. Okay, so someone says, coming in here to just check in. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Make sure you smash the like button if you're stopping by. Guys, the viewership is incredible. We're about 10 likes away from 300. I'm telling you, this video is going to boom. So I love and appreciate you all. So once we've done that, we now create a OpenAI instance like so. And this will go ahead, and this object can be used to basically go ahead and communicate back and forth with OpenAI. So once that's done, we simply say export default OpenAI. Now, just like we've done in the past with any of our other apps, right? Like we usually do this with like Firebase or other things. In this case, we can go ahead and do the same pattern as we like to do so, right? So that's simplified things. We can forget about that now. The next thing we need to do is actually create a API endpoint. This API endpoint is what we're actually going to be pinging against. So in Next.js, we can actually have API endpoints. In Next.js 13.2, we have these new root.ts files, which is awesome, right? It's super clean, and you've got a seamless integration between your API endpoints and your client and server components. So it's all like on the same level now, which is incredible. And we can go ahead and get rid of the pages folder finally, right? So inside of the app folder, we can go ahead and create inside. You see, we've got this API, and you can see hello and root.ts, and this is the new structure. And as you can see, it follows a very similar approach to Express, whereby we say get, post, you know, all the kind of standard REST API things that we're gonna go ahead and need. But in this case, you can see what it's done here is it's created an endpoint at /API/hello, and it supports GET requests. And if you don't believe me, I will show you right now that that is the case. So if we go to local /API/hello, you will see that it actually has a working endpoint. So this is a full API integration, right? And it works with the new sort of syntax from Next.js 13.2. So at this point now, what we're going to do is create an API endpoint it's going to make life a bit easier. It's going to be used for generating suggestions. Okay, so the suggestions are going to be for how we're going to go ahead and basically get a suggestion. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to have an API endpoint here for getting a suggestion. So I'm going to click on API. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it suggestion. Okay, now inside of suggestion, I'm going to create a file called root.ts. Okay, and from our example before, you can simply copy that if you want to use it as a starter template and paste it in if you want. Okay, now I'm going to delete that old hello folder because we don't need that root. Okay, don't get confused as well, that is inside of there. So API/suggestion. Now we've got that root as a fully functional thing. Okay, so the next thing we're going to need to do is we're going to go ahead and set up what we need essentially to go ahead and eventually now we're going to use our API. So imagine our app is going to communicate to our API, and then our API is going to go ahead and make a request to an Azure function, which is going to then be responsible for essentially going ahead and doing the ChatGPT, the OpenAI, the DALL stuff, and then it returns to our API and returns to our app. Okay, so that's essentially the flow that we're following in today's video. So what I want you to do is go ahead and say the following. So we're going to have a little bit of a pseudocode for now as well. We're going to say const response equals, and here we're going to say await fetch. Okay, and here we're just going to say for now. Okay, so it's not going to work for now, right? So just ignore it. And then we're going to do a comma, and here we can actually add in caching rules as well, right? So we're going to say that this is going to have a caching rule, and we're not going to be caching right now. So we're going to say no store. That means every single time we make the request, I want it to get a new suggestion. I don't want it to use a cached previous value, right? Guys, we just passed over 300 likes. Let's go. That is what I'm talking about. Keep the energy high. That is amazing. Let's go to 400, 500,000. Oh my God. It reminds me of the ChatGPT build. We blew up that build. It was incredible, right? Now, once we've created our Azure endpoint, so this will eventually connect to our Microsoft Azure function endpoint. Okay. Once it's done that, we're going to basically replace that there. Then we're going to go ahead, and once the response comes back, I'm going to pass the data by saying context text data equals await response.text. Okay, so you might be like, ooh, that's different because we're going to use blobs and text today. So yeah, we're doing something new. And then eventually we're going to return the following. We're going to say JSON stringify text data, and then we're going to trim it as well in case it has any extra characters. Okay, so very simple, very straightforward, and you can even go ahead and add in the status 200 if you want to be super explicit about it as well. Thank you so much to Ademo. He just dropped a $10 donation. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. You've been awesome, man. And yeah, I do not take that for granted, so I appreciate you. Thank you so much. So you can see this is pretty awesome right now. We have this. So this means that firstly, we need to connect to this. Okay. So let's get that part done. And then we're going to create our Microsoft Azure function, and we're going to create the entire flow for the suggestion. Then we're going to repeat this entire process to get it working for the image generation part. All right. So we're going to move today. All right. So at this point, we're doing a very good pace right now. So we have our base template for our root. So inside of our application, and this also protects you against things like calls and all that kind of stuff, because you're making the API request internally, which then goes outbound. So it's kind of a more secure way to do it. Okay. And a lot of people saying, how much does Azure cost and that kind of thing? Well, firstly, you get $200 on your first sign up, which is incredible. You get loads of different like kind of free credits to test things out. And for the most popular services like Azure Functions, Azure Storage, which we're going to be using today, the Blob storage, you actually get the first 12 months free. So this is a prime time to go ahead and do what I'm doing. Download the source code for free, aka.ms/Sunny, first link in the description, and then go ahead and use the Microsoft Azure services as much as you can in a year. Benefit from them, put them on your resume that you can use them, all that kind of stuff, and then go ahead and go forward and keep up with them if you want to after a year. Okay. So we have this looking pretty decent. I'm going to go into my component, the prompt input. And at this point, we are going to make that request that I'm talking about previously. Okay. So when I create, I need a suggestion now. Okay. So that suggestion is going to come from. Okay, so this is where we're going to use useSWR. Okay, so firstly, let's create a little utility library sort of helper folder to help us out with a few things. So at the package.json level, I'm going to create a lib folder. Okay, and this is basically like, you know, for any kind of helper stuff. And inside of my lib folder, I'm going to create a get suggestion, fetch suggestion from ChatGPT file, right? So this has got a function inside of it. So I'm going to create a function inside, fetch suggestion from ChatGPT.ts. okay? And inside of it, I'm simply going to have an arrow function, and it's going to have the name of that file, and it's going to go ahead and do something, and then it's going to export default fetch suggestion from ChatGPT, right? So we're kind of keeping a nice clean folder structure here. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fetch from that URL that we just created. So it's going to be /API because it's already on our own host network. And then we're going to go ahead and say for the second argument, it's going to say cache no store, because again, I do not want to cache these values, okay? So I do not want to cache them. Now, after that's done, I want to pass the response. Now, if you remember, what we were actually doing from that route is we were JSON stringifying it. So I want to pass it afterwards, right? So when it comes back to us, I need to then go ahead and say res. So get the response and res.json it. Okay, so res.json. So we pass it. Right. Now, with that done, we actually have our fetch statement. Now, what we can do is typically you would have to store this in a variable and return it, but you don't even need to do that if you actually know what you're doing with ES6 functions. So if we only have one line of code, in this case, this can be considered one line of code because it's one chained command, we can actually get rid of the curly braces and we can get rid of this. And essentially what we're doing is we're putting it inside of a parentheses, which means return. Okay, but we don't need the parentheses. And now what you can see is what we have here is a implicit return. So this is implicitly returning when we call this. So it's fetching, it's returning a promise. So you can see it's returning a promise. Okay, so this will return these suggestions. So now this will connect to our API. Great stuff. So we've got our helper function down, and now what we're going to do is create the actual functionality on this side. So instead of doing it the normal, create a piece of state, have maybe a use effect, that kind of thing, I'm going to be using useSWR because it's a great way to do things in the fetching and caching space. So in order to get this right, what I want you to do is head over to, let me go ahead and just pop this over here for now. Head over to the following and type in useSWR. Now on the useSWR website, you'll see React hooks for data fetching. Now, bear in mind, these need to be working on client components because they require state, okay? So in order to get this started, we're going to click on Get Started, and we're going to use npm. We're going to install it. So npm iswr. Okay, so head over to your app, Command J to pull up your terminal, and I need you to go ahead and do npm iswr. Guys, the likes are flying in, all right? Thank you so much. This is incredible. This is awesome. All right, somebody says we need a React testing videos. Okay, I got you, right? So we've done this now. So npm iswr, and then what I want you to do is you can check this out, but essentially you have this pattern where you have a fetcher, which we've already created, right? We've already created the fetch suggestion from ChatGPT helper, and then we're just going to integrate it like so. And what's really good about this is you can see it gives you a few different options. When you do this, you basically are fetching the stuff and you're adding it to a cached value. So in this case, this could be whatever key you want, and it caches it. Then it'll give you the data, and it'll also give you a loading. So while it's fetching it, you'll have a parameter to go ahead and check again. So am I loading the data yet? Was there an error? That kind of stuff, which is really, really handy. Okay, so now what I can do is I can go ahead and say const, and I can say data error is loading. So basically the line that we saw previously, and then I can say use SWR, okay? And then I can pop in the following. So here, what we have is firstly, this is a key value. This could be ABC. It does not matter. It doesn't even need to be /. But what we tend to do is set the key to be something like /API /suggestion. So that way you directly know that it's the cache key value for that API call, okay? And then we're going to go ahead and say fetch suggestion from ChatGPT, right? Now, after this, I want you to go ahead and first we need to import this from useSWR so we stop getting the error. So let's go ahead and do that right now. And then after that, the third argument I need you to do is type in revalidate on focus false. If we don't do this, what happens is every time we click back onto the screen after we focus out, it's actually going to trigger that call again, because it's like you left the screen, now you've come back and I need to refresh the information. So we're explicitly telling it, no, you don't need to refresh the information. You're good. Don't stress, right? So that's why we're actually going to go ahead and do it that way. I'm just going to decrease my brightness. There we go. Cool. So at this point, I think we're all enjoying this right now. Absolutely smashing it. This is incredible. Quick little water break before we carry on. Almost at 400 likes. Let's go, guys. If you're watching a replay right now, remember, just drop a comment, download that free source code by filling out the Microsoft form, and yeah, do your thing. Okay, let's carry on. So Blaze says, can I use SWR instead of fetching data with useSWR? Yes, it's actually a very good practice to do so as well. So now this will go ahead and fetch here for the data, and it will probably error out because remember we don't actually have our Azure function up yet. So it's kind of pointing to that like ... which doesn't do anything. Okay. So at this point, we are going to have the data being called. So in this case, where was it? We're going to rename the data to suggestion. So let's go here, rename it to suggestion, right? Because that's going to be the suggestion that comes back. And then we've got is loading. And then you can also have a few other things. But for this build, I don't need the error itself. I just need is loading. And you also get another one called is mutate. And you get is validating. Is validating is when we're actually sort of refreshing the cache. Is validating it, seeing if it's expired or not. And mutate is when you want to go ahead and manually call it yourself. So that way it goes ahead and actually manually calls this again. And it's really handy because you can do optimistic updates and things like that. So I'll explain what all that is in a second as well. TJ says, you're doing an awesome thing to inspire from you to do some projects at startups. So thank you, dude. I appreciate you, man. So now at this point, we've got this in. So what I want you to do is we're actually going to go ahead, and I think really what we should do here is create the endpoint, because we're kind of at a halt because it's not going to be calling anything. So right now, just for context, this is calling our API suggestion endpoint. This then makes a request to a non-existent Microsoft Azure function endpoint, which we are going to create right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So this brings us to Microsoft Azure. Hey, all right. So Microsoft Azure is a huge suite of tools, right? They have everything that you can possibly think of in the tech space. They have a service for it, including a new OpenAI Azure function, which I was really eager to use, but you actually need a waitlist for it. So I'm working with the team right now to get on that waitlist, so that way I can build a video to show you it, right? But in the meantime, I created a function myself that does the exact same thing. Okay, so I'm going to show you how we do it. So first things first, I need you to go ahead and create an account at Azure. So I've got actually a nice little link to show you. So firstly, if you head over to the following right now, so if I show you this right here, so if you head over to azure.microsoft.com, you'll get to this point, building in the cloud with an Azure free account. Now it is free to create this, right? So don't stress, you don't need any major money or anything like that. And remember, you get 12 months worth of free access to the most popular 55 services or something, right? So if you click on this, you actually get access to all of these things. So you get access to all these services. So I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they're even always free for these things as well. So it's absolutely amazing, right? Now, once that's done, you actually also get $200 worth of free credit. So it's a huge amount of credit to actually do the coding that we're going to do. And I always get a pushback from this. So all you need to do is sign up, right? So sign up, connect your account, do all of that kind of stuff. So once you're done with that, all right, Cobra Tate archive, that's up. So after that, you're going to sign in. Okay, so I've already done this, right? And again, don't freak out if it starts asking, you need to give in your details and that kind of thing. It's Microsoft, it's safe, right? Trust me. I've done it myself. I've created an account. So in this case, once you have the account, you'll reach this screen. Okay, now this screen can be a little bit scary if you're not used to this. So don't stress. I'm going to break it down as well. Well, what I want you to do is firstly go ahead, and you can see we've got different services. The ones that we're going to be interested in is the function app. The function app is going to be for cloud functions, right? So right now I have the test app, which is the one that I just built previously to demonstrate. The storage account is to store all of the images from our art gallery. So everything you see that here that's being stored is going to be inside of storage accounts, and they're stored as blobs, right? So these are all just blobs being stored on Microsoft, and it's great for storing multimedia files, images, videos, anything like that. It's a really awesome way to do it. Okay, and then we've got the Azure function, which is going to handle all of our communication, and remember, it scales amazingly. It's Microsoft, right? It's going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how we can actually set this up from our code itself, right? So yes, I said that, our code itself. So what I've actually done here is simplified the steps to do all of this stuff. So I'm actually just trying to find a little note that I did for this to go ahead and make it a little bit easier for you. So what we do is we're basically going to go ahead and close everything here. And at the package.json level, I'm going to create a new folder called Azure. Okay. Now inside of Azure, what we're going to do is, you see it's an empty folder. Okay, so I've installed the Azure function extension, right? So make sure you've got this function extension, so Azure function. Now, once you've got this, you can do really cool things, such as you can see all of your stuff over here. So all of your resources, you can access your subscription and see all of your different things like your function, your storage accounts, everything, all from a VS Code, which is actually really powerful, right? So I can see all of the deployed functions, I can see my containers, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And don't worry, it's just because it's something new, it can be a bit scary, but I promise you it's really, really powerful. Okay. So at this point, I want you to go ahead and do Command-Shift-P and type in Azure and type in create a function, right? So create function. And you can see here, create function app, right? So the first thing we want to do is create a function app in Azure. So click on create function, and then we need to create a name for our new function app. So here, what I'm going to type in, and you can see it's one of 3 steps. So I'm going to type in the following. I'm going to say Microsoft AI. Let's just type in AI image generator. So AI image generator YouTube app. Okay. And I think I'm not allowed these characters, to be honest with you. All right. So I think I am, maybe. Let's just try it. Let's do AI image generator YouTube app. Okay, so that makes it very easy for you guys. Click enter, and you can see select a runtime stack. So in this case, you can see I used Node.js 18, right? So I'm going to be using Node.js 18, but you can see they also support Python and all that good stuff as well. So I'm going to go back to that previous step. I'm going to type in Node.js this one here. So I'm going to go down to Node.js, hit enter. Right? Then select a location for where you want to deploy it. So they have lots of different locations. I'm simply going to do the US for now. Right? So as you can see, it's creating a function app. Right? So this is very simple to do so. This creates the function app on the backend. Right? And if you hadn't logged in, it would have prompted you to log in and so forth. Okay, so you would have had to log in at that point if you haven't already. Now, what it's doing is creating a function app for us. So if inside of here, what we'll find if we hit refresh shortly, this will be created. And as you can see, we've got the Azure activity log, and this will go ahead and do it for us. Okay. So this is what I really like about this extension, is that you can actually do it all from VS Code, which is very refreshing because you never have to leave. They've done a really nice integration with all of that stuff. Okay. So as you can see, it's at step 5 of 6. So it's almost done. Let's see if we refresh now. Is it there? Not yet. Okay. It will be there in a second. Create new function app. There it is, 6 out of 6. Give it a second and it will go ahead and create the function app. Now, the function app, think of it as like the house for your cloud functions, right? So that one function app can have several different endpoints in once we've gone ahead and get everything set up, right? Okay. And again, if you do get stuck, remember you can get the Microsoft, the source code in the first link in the description. And I have got all of the Azure, so inside of here, all of the source code for it. So if you get stuck right now, you can feel free to check that out, use it as reference as you're watching this video and kind of make way with things, right? So really, really going to help you out. So there you go. We've created the function app. So let's go back here and click on the refresh button. So I think here, let's go over here and I'm in my correct account. And I'm just going to click on function app. We should see it. Let's go over here actually and just see. Maybe I'm in the wrong application. I'm doing something silly. Let's go down to Azure and I can see function app. And as you can see, AI image generator app. So maybe it's just not propagating here. There you go. Okay, so you just took a second to refresh. And you can see this is the one I had previously. This is the new one that where we're starting everything off. So if I click into it, you can see I've got really a huge amount of control over this entire cloud function. And it can be scary, but don't worry. It's actually really awesome to have this amount of power behind it, right? So from here, I'm going to make it easy. Don't worry. It's actually a lot simpler than you think. So we've got our function app created. So I'm going to go ahead and type in Command-Shift-P, and then I'm going to type in Azure create function app. It's easy. We've got create function app in Azure, create function, all this kind of stuff. So now what I want to do is go ahead and create a function itself. Okay. So now what I do is I go to create function. And as you can see, I've got this. So create new project, select a folder that will function, that will contain your function project. So I'm going to click on browse. And then what I want you to do is click into Azure. Right. So click into Azure and simply click select. Right. So that means we're basically putting the entire function code into Azure, which is neater. I like that. I prefer that. Okay. Now with that done, we are going to choose our language. So I'm pretty sure I did TypeScript. Yeah, I did JavaScript. Okay, but you can actually do whatever you want. In this case, fine. For now, for the demo's sake, I'm going to do JavaScript, but you can do TypeScript, C#, Python, anything that you want. So JavaScript for the, essentially think of this as your backend round. You can have a separate project for this even, but I'm just doing it in one place. So JavaScript, and we're going to use model v4. Right, so we're using the latest and greatest. I always be daring a bit, right? Now, how do you run your cloud function? There's loads of ways, right? I want a endpoint that eventually I can just call, and it can be a get request, post request, anything like that. And you've also got all these other things like timers, event grids, all this incredible stuff. Even if you have a blob storage trigger, which means that when I add data to my storage containers, it will trigger the function. So you can do lots of stuff. But in this case, I'm just simply going to do HTTP trigger. And we need to give it a name. And here what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the first one is going to be get ChatGPT suggestion.js. Okay, we don't need JS as well. Get ChatGPT suggestion. Okay, hit enter, and this will go ahead and create us a new project. So now if I open up my Azure, you can see we've got our own git ignore, we've got our node modules inside of there. So essentially we've got another app inside. Okay, and as you can see, we've got our source code, and if I click into that, you can see, oh, this song is a banger, right? And as you can see, we've got the all the code to get things up and running. So you've got app.http, and then it's got the get ChatGPT suggestion, which is working perfect. And then you can say, is it a get post? Is it a delete, put, update, all that kind of stuff. In this case, it's just a get request. We've got auth level anonymous, but this can actually be like, you can have a special admin only can, access this. We're going to do anonymous, all right? Because anonymous is basically, we want to allow anyone who comes onto the website to just get a ChatGPT suggestion, right? And then we can basically do all of our cool, clever stuff here. So let's click on save. And now we've got everything looking pretty decent. And I want to run this locally, right? So how do I get this up and running? Firstly, you want to code it locally, and then you want to deploy it, and then you want to change your URLs and all that good stuff. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is inside of my output over here. So remember, the first terminal is running my app. Okay, the second terminal is going to cd into Azure. So now I'm in my Azure folder. Now inside of here, what I can do is, but as long as I've got the Azure Functions core CLI tools and installed, so these are the tools that you're going to need at this point. Work with the Azure Functions core CLI tools, right? So all you need to do is go down to your operating system, so if you're Windows, Mac, and so forth, and then simply install it. So I've already installed this, and I've actually ran these commands, right? So in this case, now I can run things like Azure commands in my terminal. So if you don't have that, or you want to make life a little bit easier, you go to package.json, and you can see start. Okay, so very simple. Now here you can see if we're using package lock, so we're using npm. So I can simply write an npm run start, or npm start even works. And what this will do, guys, is it will say port 770. Okay, so I've actually got this running already on another app, so I need to cut that app. Let me kill that app quickly. I completely forgot that I had another app running. So I've killed that last app, and let's do it again. So npm run start. And as you can see, Azure Function core tools, right? And an error has occurred, unable to resolve storage connection, name storage. Okay, so we need to create a storage container as well. So let's go over here and let's just double check our setup firstly. So we actually need to set up our storage container as well, which I actually forgot about. So let's go over here. Let's go to our function, and I want to go to home, and I'm going to create a new resource. Now, in fact, I think we can even do this from the from this side. So if we type in Azure storage, I believe it was, so attach storage account, create blob container, create storage account. We're going to create a storage account. Okay, create storage account, and then here I'm going to create my storage account. Now here we're going to type in like AI image generator. Oh, we can only contain those. Okay, AI let's just call it AI image, lowercase letters and numbers. Okay, so let's just call it image, oh my god, image generator, just to make it easy. All right, image generator storage. Okay, and then we're going to hit on enter, and then you can see where do we want to put it. East-US is fine. So this is creating a storage account for us, and this will be responsible for having all of our storage for our application. Okay, so heading over back to our application now. If we go to our function app right here, so you can see recent, You can actually start playing around with a lot of this stuff and go down and, you know, do all your kind of things and bits and bobs. I want to go to, I forgot what it was now. Okay, so let's go back. Let's just wait until it's done and I'll show you how we do it. There we go. So let that do its thing. So it's creating the final account. Cool. Then what I want to do is Command-Shift-P, and I'm going to say Azure Storage, and then we're going to say attach storage account. Right, so which, you know, we don't need to attach it. Sorry, my bad. So let's try and do our deployment again. So let's try and run this again. I think we may be missing something very minor here, but let's do it again. And I think it's because actually what I've done here. So we've got this request blah, blah, blah. Let's actually get rid of this. And let's go ahead and just say hello world. Hit save. And let's run it again. npm run start. Okay. So, okay, where have I got my Azure storage? Let me just see. 1 second. Host, extension, blah, blah, blah. And we've got this. In fact, one thing I need to check as well, that I'm using the correct version of Node. So here, actually, you want to type in MVM. So you need to install something called MVM, which is your Node version manager. So I recommend everyone gets this, even when for your production side of things or for, you know, whatever you're doing. But MVM allows us to dynamically switch between Node versioning systems. So we set this up with Node version 18. So check out this documentation, install it, update it, that kind of thing. You can simply run this command and it'll work for you. I'm going to just go over here and I'm going to type in NVM ls, and it will tell me what you see. I'm on the wrong version of Node. I need to be on version 18, and it's per terminal as well. Okay, so I'm going to type in nvm, and if you don't have it, you can just say install 18, and then once you've done that, you say use 18. So now I'm using, you'll see in a second, it will say you're using Node version. So there we go, nvm ls. You see now I'm using version 18. Okay, so let's try and do it again. npm run start. And I think it might still crash out here. Yeah, okay, so that's fine. Provider. Okay, that's, I think it's actually, I think I know what I've done wrong. Let me just double check something quickly. So I've actually messed up here. So my Azure Web Job Storage, yeah, so this is actually where I've done a silly mistake. So I needed to do, I've not got any of my settings I actually need here, which is probably the problem that I'm doing. So let's go back over. So now we're doing a debugging. I like this bit. Okay. So we're going to go to, I believe it was, I don't know, silly mistake previously. You've exceeded your API limit. No, I don't think so. I've got a pretty big, I've got my card on here as well. So it was, let's go to my home. Let's go ahead and just refresh. I just want to see my storage accounts. I did have an AI image generator storage. There we go. It was for the we actually already created one. Yeah. Let's see. Then we've got our image generator, YouTube. And then we've got functions. Where is it? Functions. Containers. So previously in my old app, it was actually here. I'll tell you what we're going to do. I'm actually going to check out the documentation myself because I'm a little bit confused. So I've actually created it already. Local functions we've already done. Let's go ahead and do the actual. So I'm using Microsoft Azure Storage Container, right? And let's just check out, get started and do it ourselves together, right? So Azure Blob Storage, here you go. Yeah. So quick start into this. We've already done this tutorials. We've already done this. I just need to connect it, and I've completely forgotten how I done it. So Node.js, let's see for ourselves. Right. So I've kind of done the same mistake here. I've already done my storage count, containers. Right. So in my notes, I actually had this quite neatly done, but I've made a silly mistake. Okay, so let's go back to our Microsoft. So here in this case, we've got our storage function up, which is great. Okay, so let's just see all quickly. I just want to see everything that I did last time. So I have my test app, I have my generator app, and then previously I had the test app as well. What's happened here that I think the problem is that you can see I've got my storage app, and then I've got my, so it should have been connected, to be honest with you. I think there's just been a bit of a silly connection settings in, yeah, I know we have a connection string, but I would have thought it would have been already connected. So, okay, so there's a little trick you can do to pull your settings. So you can go ahead and type in Azure, settings, download remote settings, app service. It was download remote settings for functions. Let's download the remote settings for our functions. And then what you'll find is you can get these ones, right? So Sunny Test App or AI Image Generator. So we're going to do AI Image Generator, and this should download some settings for us. So let it do its thing. Oh, it's because I didn't run it as well. Of course. Right. So in this case, that will take a second. So do you want to override your settings? Yes. And there you go. Okay. So stupid mistake on my end, right? You actually have to pull it in. Okay. So my mistake, right? I completely made a silly mistake there. So it happens, right? So Command Shift P, you just had to click on Azure Function download remote settings, because otherwise what you're trying to do is you're emulating without the correct settings to connect to your backend, right? Which makes no sense. So now what I'm going to do is npm run start, and we should be able to get past that little hurdle that we were on. Right, remember you should be on MVM, your node version 18. And then what we should see, if everything's gone well, we should see this should start up. There we go. That's what I wanted to see, right? So that's the debugging that I like doing on live, because it's real, right? It's real. You guys see me, how I take it out and so forth, okay? So after all this, you can go ahead and see it's running it right now at localhost 7071. And yeah, so Vishan, all you needed to do was download the remote settings. That's the mistake I made. Okay, so there we go. We click on this, and what we will find is what I'm going to do. I'm going to simplify this and show you myself rather than, because it opened in a completely different screen. We're going to go over to our new page, and then we pop in. You see hello world. So now you can see we've got it's the same thing as what we had before, except it's literally running on the cloud, right? But this is emulating it locally. So now we can develop locally and then basically do what we need to do. So this is perfect. This is what I wanted, right? So what I'm now going to do is have my app. We can close that. We've got the app, and then we've got this endpoint running over here. So you can see localhost 7071. So this is great. So what now I'm going to do is I have my endpoint. So if we go over to my app API root, okay, and then here, what I'm now going to do is basically pop in this. So now it's going to make a request to this backend, right? Now, what you can do as well is you can say, if the environment is a dev environment, do your local host, otherwise do your production URLs. For today's build, for simplicity, I'm just going to replace the URLs, but that is something that you would do in production. You would just say, if the environment is, dev or production, then use this URL, otherwise use your local dev URL. It's very easy to do that, okay? So we've got this down, and you can see that this is my logs for running. So if we were to go ahead and go full screen, you can see if I was to simply say, going back to the function, if I type in, hey, like hello, and hit save, what you'll see here is it's going to restart my function over there, down here. So my running function, if I refresh it, you'll see that we see, it should see execute function, hello, HTTP. This is not my logs. Okay, so go back to my Azure. Let me cut this, so Control C. Can cut that off, and then go ahead and do npm run start. And I'll show you a few little tricks here. So let's let that run. And you can see we've got the endpoints. If I refresh, you can see it says hello, and then you've got your output. Okay, so that's great. So at this point now we can start coding out that backend. Whew, we made it, guys. We got past that little hurdle, right? So again, it's just practice, it's all that good stuff, but it's very powerful, which is why I really want to put emphasis behind using it. So at this point we have remember we created that connection to OpenAI, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to use that same connection to OpenAI now. So because we're using Azure and we're using a bit of a backend environment, we haven't got our import export statements. We're instead using traditional require statements. So in this case, this will go towards we need to go to the lib OpenAI folder. So in this case, I'm going to go upper file. In fact, I need to go up another file. And in this case, I'm going to go to my lib /fetch suggestion from ChatGPT. This gives me my OpenAI what I need to connect to ChatGPT. And now I'm going to go ahead and say const response. So this is the magic part. This is basically where I'm going to go ahead and communicate and send a prompt to ChatGPT in the form of like, give me a suggestion to create a piece of art for DALL, so that way it generates it. And I'm going to say like, make it photorealistic, 4K, this way you can have some real fun, right? So we're going to get const response equals await. And then we're going to say OpenAI dot create completion. Okay, and then I'm going to pop in brackets like so. And then here, what I do is I pass in a model first, right? So model, and here we have lots of different models, right? So, but I'm going to use the Text DaVinci 003. So this is the latest sort of ChatGPT 3 or 3.5 string, right? So in this case, I'm not sure which one it is, but once GPT-4 comes out, I will do a video on it, I promise you, okay? So now what we do is we go to the prompt. So this is the exciting part. We go to the prompt, and then here I say, what do you want your prompt to be? So I've actually created a nice long prompt that you can feel free to go ahead and copy, right? So we're not going to use this as a test prompt. We're going to go ahead and say, write a random prompt for DALL to generate an image. This prompt will be shown to the user, including details such as the genre and what type of painting it should be. Options can include oil painting, watercolor, photorealistic, blah, blah, blah. Do not wrap the answer in quotes. Full stop, right? Because sometimes it was giving me an answer back and it always had these quotes, which was a bit annoying. The next thing I would say is give it a max tokens. So we're going to give it a max tokens of 100, right? So that means it's going to return an answer of max, like kind of 100 tokens. And then the temperature is essentially how random or focused you want it to be. So this has to be a number between 0 and 2. If it's like 0.2, it's likely to give you the same answer every single time. If you did something like 2, it's a lot more random, but it's also not focused. So a nice balanced middle ground for me is 0.8. And that's going to give us a really nice answer, okay? Then what I'm going to do is we go ahead and we get it back, right? So we get the, so I'm going to log out something like a function saying, you reached the end of this thing, blah, blah, blah. And then what I'm going to say is get the response text back, and I'm going to return it in the body. So now, wait for it, guys. Response text comes back, and this is where we basically get the text from. This is what ChatGPT will return. And we're just saying it's going to return one answer back. So you can actually give it an n value, I think it was, and that will give you basically the number of the number of options it should return. And then instead of just hello world here, I'm simply going to return the response text. Okay, so let's go ahead, and rather than hello world now, what we should see if it goes ahead and actually does this again. So we need to kind of refresh. Usually when I'm not on the stream, it rebuilds it. So if it doesn't do that, just simply cut the terminal, npm run start again. Okay, or you can actually do function F5, and if we do that, it will attach a debug, and it's pretty cool actually, right? So in this case, cannot find the module for fetch suggestions from ChatGPT. That's fine. That's because I've not basically, okay, so my import statement is buggered. So let me figure out what I've done here wrong. So source functions, and then I've made a silly mistake here because in my app I've done it a little bit different. So we've got Azure. I'm just going to double check everything now. So we've got Azure, we've got our source, we've got our functions, we've got get ChatGPT. So in this case, I'm going upper level. So I think I've gone too far up, to be honest with you. I think it should have been there. Yeah, so that makes a little bit more sense actually, because it's going upper level, and then we're in the lib folder. Okay, so let's do npm run start. And let's see if we get that now. Okay. So we still there's another issue. So functions.js cannot find module fetch suggestion from ChatGPT. Oh no, okay. Oh my god, I've done a silly thing. Oh, no, okay, guys. I'm so sorry. I've done such a stupid mistake, right? So inside of Azure, all right, I've gone out of my actual Azure folder, which you shouldn't do. Right, so I've completely mixed up my context there. So inside of Azure, we're going to create a folder called lib. So we're going to have a lib inside of Azure, and then here we're going to have an OpenAI and OpenAI.js, sorry. And inside of here, we're going to have the exact same thing that we did previously, except for it's going to be module exports instead of export default. Okay, that is what you needed to do. So I apologize, that was my mistake. Right now, the environment variables in this basically, remember, think of Azure as a separate app, right? So you can actually have it in a separate repo if you want, but the environment variables for this are actually inside of local settings.json. So here, okay. So what I want you to do here is actually go ahead and add them in here instead. So we're going to add in OpenAI organization, and I'm going to add in the following. So I've already got my organization key. So I'm going to get it from my environment file down here. So where I have environment.local, I'm going to click it now. And what I'm doing is I'm copying my organization key, going back to my local settings, and I'm pasting it in as a quote. And then I'm doing the same thing for the OpenAI key. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is basically have the OpenAI key. So let's go ahead and pop it in. OpenAI key. These are the environment files for what's it called, for Azure. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and go into my environment local file on my other one. So I'm going to do it just so you guys are explicitly clear. I'm going to go to my environment local file at the top level, click it. And then I'm grabbing my secret keys, the SK one, and I'm going back to my local settings JSON and I'm pasting it. Okay, so I'm going to paste that in here. So now I've got my secret key in there and my local settings.json. So that's good, right? That's great. Now what we need to do is, remember, that's local. Okay, that's locally happening. But what we really needed to do now was actually make it. So firstly, let's cut this. Let's go to ChatGPT suggestion. And then firstly, let's just double check that we're actually getting from where we wanted to get now. So inside of OpenAI, oh my God, I made such a stupid mistake earlier. Wow, that is so bad. All right, so here, all right, so here I'm going to do /lib/OpenAI. There we go. All right, so do not do what I just did. That's very silly. And then we hit save. And now we have our environment files. So we should be good to go. So let's go ahead and do npm run start. And this will go ahead and hopefully we get past this little issue we were having. And there you go. Okay. So let's give it a try now. Let's gonna go to that endpoint and we should see a prompt. Oh, okay. We got an error. So what's the error? Let's chase the errors down until we get the correct response. So we can see response failure. Exception failed 429. So I got rate limited, I believe. Oh no, I actually hit the quota limit on my OpenAI account. Too many requests. Okay, so I've basically got rate limited from ChatGPT, okay, which is fine for now. What I can do is, because I think what I did is, okay, so I'm going to swap the keys and the organization to have my other account, so my Sunny Sanger account instead, because I think my Papa React account is got 500,000 views and 500,000 people are going on that. I think I've leaked my key somewhere. So basically what I'm doing now is I'm just swapping out my keys. So I've got the other keys from my demo, which is fine. I can do that. So I'm changing out my OpenAI key. You don't need to do this because yours will be absolutely fine. It's because I'm a YouTuber and people love to use what they can try and get their hands on. So I'm basically going ahead and swapping out my keys for the other keys now. So I'm basically swapping it in my local file, my local settings.json file, and then that's it. We can go ahead and change it in just a short second. So I'm almost done. Okay. So now I've hidden everything that I needed to do and we're good. Okay. So I've swapped it out and I'm going to close this out and let's try it again. So this one shouldn't get rate limited. So npm run start. If it is, you can just have another account and yeah, check it. If it does get rate limited, it's because people somehow got access to it. I can refresh and let's see if we get it. Yay, there we go, guys. Look at that. Paint a modern abstract oil painting of a tree with vibrant colors and a cloudy sky. If I hit refresh again, I'll get a different suggestion. Create a photorealistic oil painting of a futuristic cityscape with a twilight sky. So you can feel free to make your prompt whatever you want, and it's going to go ahead and create it. So that is using ChatGPT to go ahead and do that now, which is awesome. And you can see it's returning from that API, which means we can build the rest of the front end for the suggestion. And then from there, it's relatively quick, guys. Then we're going to move. Okay. So at this point now, we've got the Azure function up and running, right? So we're going to deploy this afterwards. I'll show you how we do deployments after. But for now, we go back to prompt input. And this one is already making a request on our front end. So make sure you don't get confused here. Inside of app API, now we've got this API endpoint. So get ChatGPT suggestion. And then remember, from our component, we are using useSWR to make a call to our own local API, right? So now this is going to go ahead and pull the data in. So this will pull a suggestion in, which should work. So the way that we can test this is we just simply console log the suggestion inside of our app, okay? And what I want you to do here is go over to your app and simply open up your inspector. So open up your inspector, console log, and then refresh and see what we see. So in this case, you can see undefined. Ignore this. This is actually for my, I've got extension working right now, so that's fine. But here, that's my DevTools. React DevTools kind of breaks a few things for some reason. But here you can see that it comes back, create a modern abstract thing. If I refresh now, we can see it will come back after a second, create a 4K abstract model, modern oil painting. Awesome. So it's working. It's pulling in what we needed, which is bloody amazing, right? So now I can proceed to build everything. So let's go to Sunny. You are awesome. And that's what I'm talking about. Miami's in the house. That's what I'm talking about, man. We got Miami's international. They're actually crazy. We've got the US in the house as well. Amazing stuff. All right. Oh God, I love you guys. It's honestly so cool to be coding with everyone. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and actually have a submit. We're gonna have a, we're gonna fetch the suggestion, right? So we're gonna show the suggestion here. So where we have the placeholder, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have a curly brackets, and then I'm gonna say, if we have the suggestion, use that, or use enter a prompt. Okay, so now look, create an abstract 4-piece. Look at that. Oh, that's nice, right? Look at that. So if we refresh, you'll get a different one. Create an ordinary abstract pointing. Oh, there we go. That's clean. All right, that's really nice. Okay, so that's looking good. And then what I can also do is I can say if it's loading, right? And what we're doing is we're actually going to use two different things. So is loading and is validating are called at separate points. Is loading is called initially when the this call is being made. So this one, remember that's the key cache value, yeah? The key for the caching purposes, right? So in this case, that could be ABC, for example, right? If it's loading from the beginning, that's going to be that. If we mutate or whatever, it's going to invalidate. So basically what we're going to say, loading is determined by is loading or is validating. If any of those are true, it's going to go ahead and do it, right? So what we can do here is basically say for the placeholder, if you're loading, then we're going to say something along the lines of, so I want to get rid of that, sorry. We're going to say, if it's loading, then it will show that, or it will basically jump to suggestion, or it will say enter a prompt, right? But here I'm going to say ChatGPT is thinking of a suggestion, ... Okay, so now look at that. ChatGPT is thinking of a suggestion. Bam, hit refresh. ChatGPT is thinking of a suggestion. Create it back. Oh, that's just clean. All right, so nice. And it's communicating through our own API with Next.js 13.2, then to an Azure API, which does all the hard work and that kind of connects to DALL and OpenAI's ChatGPT. Okay, so now we're going to implement new suggestion and use suggestion, right? Or new suggestion first. So firstly, new suggestion is fairly easy. We just need to go ahead and say call mutate. Mutate basically means generate a new suggestion, or basically mutate means basically execute that again, right? So if I do attach this to the new suggestion, so we say on click mutate. Now watch this. If I click it, so let that do its thing, load. If I click new suggestion, bam, just like that. Look at that. Giant robotic dog was the last one. Black and white picture, blah, blah, blah. Next one. Abstract rainbow over it. Next one. Oh, it's just so clean. So clean, right? Social Life says, Sunny has great patience with things that was planned, like in the beginning of initial packaging. I would have knocked my monitor over. You know what? That's what it's about. You have to just build resilience and just take your time and problem solve it, right? I do it on live stream to help show you guys that it's a normal thing that happens to everyone, okay? So we've done our suggestion point. Now we need to do generate and use suggestion. So that actually comes forward when we do the generate image portion of the build, okay? But what we actually want to do is if I type in here, I want the suggestion to show up underneath, right? So this is actually fairly cool, like a nice little cool trick. So underneath the form, I can say if the person's already typed in, so if there's input, then I should generate something here. And what I want to do is I want to have a p tag and I want to say suggestion. And I basically want to span in a few things. So I'm just going to save a bit of time here by popping in the following. So I'm basically spanning in a violet bit of text. And then it says, if it's loading ChatGPT thing, otherwise show suggestions. So you see this, if I do this, but if I get rid of it, you see how it's there. But the minute the user types in, you still see the suggestion. because that's really handy, right? You might not want to lose the suggestion like visibility. So that's great. So that's a nice little cool trick if you want to do that. So let me say italic, padding on the top of 2, padding on the left of 2, and I want the font to be light. So it's like super crisp, right? And if I type in, you see that suggestion, the stylized 4K abstract, it's just so nice. I really like it, yeah? So look at that, awesome. So now let's get on to the interesting part. Let's do the generation portion. Okay, so let's actually have the ability to generate an image and then actually go ahead and create an image with DALL-E 2, and then we're going to upload it to Microsoft Azure, the sort of blob containers, so storage containers. And then what that means is that we're storing our images using Microsoft Storage Service in the form of blobs, right? So we're just basically storing all of our images there, and then we're going to be able to pull those images down on the front end and visualize it, okay? And when we use useSWR, we can do lots of neat little tricks to actually make this happen in a really cool manner. Okay, so next step I want you to do is go ahead and we're going to create new endpoints, and we might actually just create all the endpoints now to make our life a little bit easier. So I want you to open up your API, and right now we already have the API suggestion route. So make sure you click on API, right? So you're at that level. Click new folder. Vladimir says, Sunny is the best, one of the best teachers on YouTube. Glad I found you. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate all of the love. Thank you so much, yeah? So here we're going to say get images. That's going to be one route. And inside of that's going to have root.ts. And then we're going to have another one. So I'm going to click on API again, new folder, called generate image. Right, and that's going to have a root.ts inside of it as well. So that way we've got 3 different routes, right? And we're going to build these out as we need to and so forth, okay? So they're fairly straightforward, to be honest with you. So inside of the generate image one, we're going to go ahead and do the following. So I'm going to have the same thing that I had with suggestion, right? So here, but now we're going to have generate image. And generate image is going to be a post request. We're not going to support get requests. It's going to be a post request, okay? And what we're actually going to do with a post request is you have to generate something called a next response instead. So for the post request, we have to import next response, and we're going to change the body of this a little bit more, right? So firstly, we have to go ahead and get the request body. So when we generate an image, we're going to send a prompt alongside that request. So the way we get the body of the request out is we basically say await request.json from the original request, and then we get the prompt from it, right? So if we do this, it basically contains the body, and then you can go ahead and get the prompt out of it, okay? So then what we need to do then afterwards is basically figure out the next bit. So here we're going to create a request. So we're going to say response equals await fetch. And this is going to be a post request now. So await fetch. And this is going to be to /API /generate image. Okay. And this one is going to be a post request, and it's going to have content type application JSON because we're sending it in the form of application JSON. And we're going to send the body, we're going to stringify the prompt alongside it. Okay. So basically we're sending a REST post request to our API endpoint, which is going to be an Azure function. And then we're sending the body in the form of a JSON object, and then we're telling it by setting the header saying, you should expect this data in application JSON format, okay? Now, once that comes back, you know, we're assuming that we're gonna get some response back from this. We don't actually do much with this response, to be honest. We actually just, the whole purpose is that we upload the image, but we're gonna pass the text, and we're just gonna say, yep, just carry on by saying next response JSON text data, and then it just moves forward, okay? So that's how we do this. Now, we need to create the endpoint on Azure, right? So you can do it a few ways. You can actually use the sort of, you know, what I showed you previously to actually, what's it called? You can use the Command-Shift-P to create new sort of, you know, functions, but I'll show you an easier way, right? I actually found a lot easier way than doing that, right? You can actually just create new files and it works, right? So in this case, we're going to create a generate image file, okay? So generate image. So we're going to go ahead and do a generate image.js file. And inside of here, we need to do a few different things. So when we generate images on Azure, you can't just go ahead and be a random user and just say, hey, I want to generate an image, right? What you have to do is there's different types of authenticating your requests to make sure that they're valid requests. So that way we don't just have people just, you know, destroying the backend. Now, one way of doing this, oh, Frank's in the house. What is up, dude? So one way of doing this is we can use something called a SAS token, and I believe it's called shared access service token, I think, but it's a SAS token, and this will allow us to have sort of a limited time access to an object or a backend service, right? So we're gonna be able to set this up right now, and I'll show you how we can do it all. So we need to make sure that we've got a few different things installed. So firstly, inside of package.json, you can see I don't have much dependencies installed here. I need a few dependencies first. The first one I'm going to show you, actually, let's just do it now. Let's go ahead and say, and I just want to check if I actually did end up using something here that I think I used. I don't think I used it in the end, but I just want to double check something. Yes, I did use it. Okay, so in that case, that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to go into my, I'm going to create another terminal. So I've got 3 terminals now, one running the front end, one running the back end. I'm going to CD into Azure to make sure I'm in the correct directory, because that's got its own node modules and package.json. And then what I want to do is npm install, and I need to install a few different dependencies. So the ones that I need to install are, if I go to my package.json, it's going to be storage blob from Azure. So Azure storage blob, so npm I Azure storage blob, and I'm also going to install Axios, right? And I'm also going to install OpenAI on the back end. So Azure storage blob, Axios, and OpenAI. So we install that. Now let's go ahead and add these to our dependency tree, and you should see that this will update. So we should have the new dependencies inside of here. So there we go. We've now got our dependencies inside. We can go ahead and close that off. Go inside of here, that's good. And then what I need you to do is go into your lib folder. So the lib folder, we're going to create a helper here, which is going to allow us to generate one of those tokens that I was talking about, because that's very important. If we don't have the ability to generate the token, then we could just set it to anonymous access, but I don't want to do that. I want to make it quite a nice, clean approach to this, right? So inside of your local settings.json, I just want to showcase something. So you have something called a account name and account key, or we might have account name or account key. I don't think I've set it up correctly yet. I'll show you how we can get that now. So the account name and account key. Okay, I remember this one, so I have not forgotten. All right, so in this case, we're going to go to our function. So where is our storage account? Storage accounts. And then we've got 2 here. Which one was I using? So I believe the one that we need is part of the resource tube that we were using earlier. So this one, resource YouTube A, showing. Okay, anyway, let's just go to image generator, storage, AI image generator. Oh, God's sake, I set up 2, didn't I? So you don't do what I do and get yourself confused. But here we can check it out by saying account name is AI image generator, and then the key is there as well. So we can use that actually to do it. So I believe that is the key. Yes, so that is the key. So you've actually got the key here. So everything up to the colon past the equals, that's the key. So we have the sort of that plus blah, 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 blah. But I'll show you from the back end how we can get it. Yeah. So if you go into AI image generator, which is my one, and then you go into your, where is it gone? Keys, access keys. I believe it was here. And then you've got your key here. I just want to check if that is my actual key or not, because I don't know if that was the one that I used. So I'm just double checking something, guys. So that is the key, and that is the storage name. Yep. So that is the key. Okay. So what I want you to do is click on show, copy this key, right? So that's the key that you're going to need. And that key is also here, right? So you can, then what I want to do is I want to make life a little bit easier, and I'm going to create another variable called account key. And I'm going to simply pop in my key. So here I'm going to pop in a key value. So I'm going to just pop in, screw it, let's do it now. I'll cycle my key afterwards. Account name is going to be my account name. So this one here. And then we pop that in. Okay, so now I've got the same thing. Hit close. And then what we can do is we've got the key in place. So we head back over to Azure. We head back over to our library. And we say generate SAS token dot JavaScript. Okay. Now, with this, we're going to go ahead and actually everyone's mad focused. So we've got the token there. So now with this, I need to go ahead and get things set up. So firstly, I'm going to need a bunch of dependencies from storage, right? So now we're inside of our Azure lib folder. I'm going to need these. Then I'm going to need a few different things. So I'm going to need the account name. I'm going to need the account key, and I'm going to need the container name. Right, and what we can do here, I believe, because we can say Azure storage create container. So you see create blob container, create storage account. So I want to create a blob container. So I'm going to do Command Shift P. I just went down there, create blob container, and then you can see we've got all of these. So the one that I'm doing is AI image generator. So this middle one, I'm going to hit enter. Then we have to give it a name. So here I'm going to say images is the name of my blob container. This will now create me a blob container with images name, and that means that I can store all of my images inside of this container. And I actually have a really nice diagram to show you that visualizes this. Right, so I want to kind of show you this so that way it kind of helps you guys out a little bit. So this will actually help you out a little bit. So let me see if I can get this up. So it's here, right? So you can see this is essentially how we visualize a container. So you have your account, which is basically like my account that I've logged into. Then you've got your container. So in this case, we're going to have images, right? So this one, pictures, we're going to call it images. Then you have the blobs. The blobs are all the files. So this is how you essentially are going to store all of your stuff, right? So this is how basically we use the Microsoft the storage service, right? Solano says, thanks, Sonny. Thanks to you and other YouTube. I'm proud to be sitting behind a high-end setup watching Incredible. That's awesome, man. I'm proud of you. Thank you. Okay, so that's actually gone ahead and I believe done that. I think that has done it. Create storage account. We can actually check ourselves by going into Azure, go into our container apps, storage account, sorry. And then inside of storage accounts, you've got your AI image generator, you've got your blob containers, and we should see images here. Images, there we go. Nice, awesome. So in this case, it's empty, right? That's exactly what we wanted to see, it's empty. And then now what we can do is we can set up our access keys, right? So the first one is you need something called a shared key credential. And I'm just going to go ahead and explain these as we pop them in. So you use this instance creator here, and you pass in your account name and your account key. This gives us a key credential to go ahead and log into the account. Then we need to go ahead and create a blob service client. And this allows us to connect to that blob account. And what we're doing here is we use our account name. This is a special URL, and it's very easy, right? It's just your account name .blob core windows.net, and then you use your key credential to access it. So this is basically this object allows us to go into what we need to do and access it and do what we need, right? And then we're going to go ahead and create the generate the SAS token. So here I say async function generate SAS token, and from here what I'm going to do is firstly I'm going to get the container. Right, so here we have the blob service client, which connects to the actual Microsoft storage blob service, right, with our credentials. Then I need to connect to the images container. So I say get container client, container name is already images. So basically this is now connected to my images container. Okay, now what I need to do is generate some permissions. So what I say is I'm going to create some permissions for my SAS token. I'm going to give it write, create, and read access to be true. Okay, so fairly straightforward. Yeah. Then I'm going to set an expiration date, and I'm going to say it's only going to be valid, this token, for 30 minutes. So what I do is I set a new date, which is now, and then I set the minutes to the current minutes plus 30. So that's 30 minutes from now. And then what we do is we create a token from that. Okay, so this token command, I'm just going to go ahead and pop it in and show you. So this is basically we generate blob SAS, right? And you basically pass in some query parameters. So we base in the container name, the permissions to string, and the expiry date. And then we pass in the key credentials so that way it allows us to, or like in a secure manner, generate this SAS token. Then we can go ahead and say return SAS token like so. And then this is going to be our utility function. That's basically going to be really handy when we're trying to do any interaction with our storage container. So then we export it so that way we can use this nice little handy function. So all the complexity is kind of stored in here in this file. We do it once, done, right? So trust me, it seems long, but it's not. Once you've done that, it's actually done. It's really not past that. And again, if you do get stuck at any point, remember that code can be quite granular. Make sure you go ahead and head over to the following URL, aka.ms/Sunny. Go ahead and you'll see this form. Fill out your first name, surname, email, country, and company. If you're a company, if you don't have a company, just put your name, So you look, just put NA or your name, it doesn't matter. And then click submit. Don't click skip, right? It actually supports the Bob fam if you just click submit, right? Don't click skip, okay? Actually submit that form. And then you can go ahead and get the GitHub repo. And once you're in that repo, you can see the code such as the Azure code. And then you can actually go ahead and code alongside me, right? So if you do get stuck at, you know, what did he write again? What did he do that I didn't do? That might help you out. And that's free. Okay, so that's to help you out. All I ask is that you fill out that form and submit it. All right, that's all we ask. All right, so at that point now, we go over to our generate SAS token. So this is our nice handy function. So now we can do our cool sort of backend magic. So we're going to we're going to pause from the generate image, and we're going to create another function called generate SAS token.js. And for now, I'm actually going to just temporarily delete generate image, right? So that way I can actually go ahead and actually work on some stuff. Now, I'm going to do the following. So where we basically had the previous same layout, exact same layout, but I'm going to do it for the generate SAS token. So what I'm doing here is I'm importing the app, right? So from Azure Functions, I am now generating the SAS token. I'm pulling in that helper function that we just created. I am naming the new Azure function, generate SAS token. It's going to be a get function. It's only going to allow get requests to it. The auth level is anonymous, which means anyone can then go ahead and create a SAS token, right? And obviously you can restrict it as much as you want and so forth. But that token will only be valid for 30 minutes. So it's somewhat it's creating these tokens that you can then access and so forth. Then we're going to go ahead and say await generate SAS token, and then it returns the token. Okay. So let's see what all of this actually did, right? So in this case, if I cut my server on the Azure, and I do npm run start, or the same command, yep, npm run start, and then you can see now what we should find is this will hopefully not error out, and it'll give us two URLs. There we go. We've got the first one, which was for generating, or the second one generating the ChatGPT suggestion, and the second one for generating the SAS token. So if I go over here now, and I basically paste in that command, what we should see is that is a perfectly valid SAS token. That's perfect. You should see SV equals and then a bunch of stuff. And if we refresh it, we get another token and so forth. That's great. Now we've got our SAS token, we can do certain things with it, okay? So you can use that function whenever you need it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my generate image function, and now we can begin to interact with the backend in the way that we need to. Okay, so you can either make a call to your own Azure Cloud Function. So that's just a very handy way of having a cloud function that can do that. If you, I think we don't even actually properly use that separate endpoint, but it's handy to have it if you want to do that. Okay, but in this case, I'm going to go ahead and do generate image again. So generate image. Oops, no, don't do that. Generate image.js. Make sure it's a JavaScript file. Okay, and Pat Peachy, yes, this tech combo is crazy. I know it's crazy. Yeah. So at this point now, I'm going to do a few dependency pulls, right? So I'm going to pull a bunch of dependencies that I need. So OpenAI, Axios, generate SAS token. And then I'm going to have the similar constraints I had previously. So I've got my Blob service client, because I'm going to have to connect to the storage service, my account name and a container name. Okay. Then I'm going to do a app.http. So HTTP request, generate image is the name of the cloud function that we're going to do. And then you've got the actual body of the function, okay? Now, for the methods, it's only going to be a post request that we're accepting, okay? The auth levels are going to be anonymous, and then we're going to have a handler, right? So in this case, you've got your async handler. We don't need the context object right now. That's fine. So how do I get the body of the request coming in from the, so imagine we send a post request to the Azure function. How do I get it? Well, we basically just do await request JSON, and we destructure it from the response that comes back, because this will give us the body, and then we just destructure to get the body.prompt, right? So this gives us the prompt back. Then what I'm going to do is, just for debugging purposes, I can do something very easily. Just say, you know, the prompt is prompt. So it'll show on the sort of server side, right, the logs, right? So once you've got that down, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to communicate to DALL. So the way we do this is we use the OpenAI instance that we previously set up. And all we just do is we do OpenAI.createImage. And this will actually communicate to DALL-E, and it will go ahead and we can pass in our prompt, how many images we want to create, and the size of the images, and then it will return us an actual image URL. Now you can use that image URL, but I'm going to show you a bunch of different ways as to how you can. I'm going to download the image URL that it gives us and basically store the actual image in storage in Microsoft Azure. It's just to demonstrate how you can actually store the images. Or you could, if you wanted, just store the text URL. It's completely up to you, but I want to store the actual image, right? Because imagine for whatever reason, you know, the OpenAI servers went down because they're under huge demand. I want to know that I've got the image on my Azure server, right? So we've got that. So I'm going to go ahead and say const response equals await OpenAI. I am using a TypeScript, dude. I'm only using JavaScript in Azure right now just because I didn't realize I've done the Azure section in JavaScript. But yes, I'm using TypeScript in the Next.js portion of this build. So we do create image. And look, you've got all of them. Look how many you've got. Create image, you've got AI variations, all this kind of cool stuff as well. And we've got the prompt. So the first thing we're going to say is the prompt is going to be the prompt that we destructured from the post request. The second one is n. Now n tells them like how many results do you want. So if you want 10 images, you can do 10. I only want 1, which is fine. And then we can say size, and now the size only has 3 options. So we're going to do the biggest size to get the highest resolution possible from this, okay? And then what we can do is we can get the image back from the response. Now the image comes back in a bit of a nested fashion. So it comes back from response.data.data, and then you've got, you know, how many responses that came back. In this case, we only done n equals 1. So we only have 1 item left in there. So we do get the URL of that image. And then what I want to do is I want to download the image, but I want to tell it that the response type that it comes back with is something known as an array buffer. Now, an array buffer is basically a way of representing an image in like a blob fashion, right? So in this case, it's just going to be a buffer of that comes back and it's representing your image, and it's basically a PNG representation of it, right? So here now what we do is we say const res equals axios. You can do it with the fetch, but I'm just doing axios. I don't think fetch was supported, that's why I've done it. So you did axios.get. We do image URL, and then response type is an array buffer. Okay. Now we can go ahead and say const array buffer equals res.data, and this basically gives us back an image, right? So this is literally giving us back an image encoded in a blob format, and then we can basically need to upload this now. So in the array buffer we have the image. We actually have downloaded the image, and we've returned it as an array buffer. So here I'll just add a little comment so it helps you out. Right, so we actually get the image. Array buffer has the image inside of it. Now what I need to do is connect to my blob instance, but I'm going to use the token that we basically generate. So you can make a call to your own API service, or you can just use a utility service that we've previously made to generate it. So SAS token equals await generate SAS token from our util. So this one, or you can make a request to your own Azure function if you want, right? If you end up depending on it a lot, but you can do const blob service client equals, and we basically what we do is we append it on as a query param. So basically you say this HTTPS, so account name blob core windows.net, and then you append it as a query param. So it's SAS token is basically at the end of it. So that SV equals blah blah blah, that is where it goes ahead and gets attached to. Okay, so love from Kenya, what's up, dude? Good to see you in the house. And I'm just curious, how many? Oh, we almost have 400 likes. Let's go, guys! Smash it, guys! Let's go. If you're watching this and you're enjoying it, just hit the thumbs up button. Push this video to as many people as you can. Right. So at this point, blob service client is down. And then we're going to go ahead and get a container client. So remember, we've got the access to the storage. We now need to get access to the container, so the image container. And then we generate a timestamp, okay, and a file name. So in this case, I'm going to give it a file name and a timestamp. So what I've done here is I've done the current time, so in the Unix sort of timestamp. And then I've created a name, which is basically the prompt underscore the timestamp. And the reason why I've done this is because just from the file name later on, I want to know and I'll be able to order it on the back end when I'm fetching the images, which images came first. And I can use that underscore to split the string and basically figure out the timestamp. So I don't need to store unnecessary information, right? So once I've got the file name, I basically can go ahead and get the access to I can basically, so now I've gone into the container, so images. Then what I do is I get a blob client, which basically says a blob client. So if we imagine what I showed you previously was this diagram. So the first layer of access was, 1 minute, let me just show you again, because I think it's very important you understand this portion very clearly. So at this point, you see the first element of access. So at the top, so when we did blob service client was this one. So you got access to this level. Then when you get the container client, you get access to this level. And then when you do blob level client, you get access to this level, right? Because basically you're saying at this file name, right? So I hope that makes sense, right? So now you got the file name. Now, once you got that, we're basically going to attempt to upload it. And if something goes wrong, we're going to error it out. And we're going to use a try catch block to do so, right? So very straightforward. We have a try catch block. Blob web client, upload data, array buffer. File will be uploaded successfully on the output if it's all good. Otherwise, it will say, well, you made an error. There was an error there. All right, so generate image. Okay. Now, we've got, this should be up and running at this point. So now what we can do is we can go ahead and we can close our Azure terminal, rerun it, and we should see a generate image request. Okay, we should see a generate image request. Now, what I want you to do at this point is download an app called Postman, because we want to test out our API, right? We actually want to go ahead and send a post request, not a get request, a post request to our endpoint. So that way we can go ahead and say, this is the prompt. I want you to now go ahead and do what you said you'll do and upload an image to that image container. Okay, so first things first, I want to prepare the scene. I want to make sure that you guys understand that this is actually working the way that we expect it to. So we go to containers, we go over to our images, and as you can see here, I have no results, which is good. Okay, so now what I want to do is I've got my post request. You see these ones are get. You can run get requests in the browser. You need a client like Postman to run a post request. So if I open up Postman, you can see Postman's a free app. It's amazing. It's really good for all developers to get used to using it. And while that loads, a quick little water break to help us out. So let's go ahead and do that. And if you're enjoying the content, remember, just smash that like button. Okay. Awesome stuff. Oh, we flew over 400 likes after I said that. Amazing. Guys, get to 500. Let's keep pumping that number up. Wow, that just flew off. All right. So at this point, if I dismiss this, yeah, so that's fine. I'm going to create a new one. So new request. I simply paste in the URL to generate image. And then what I do is, can I make this a bit bigger? Yeah, generate image. Let me make it a little bit bigger. We change it to a post request. And these are all the different options you can have. Post request. And then what we do is we set the body, right? So body, we're going to do raw. And I'm just going to say it's JSON body. There we go. And then we pass in the actual body itself. So where's my example? Sorry, I think it's, was it here? I think I've done, so prompt. And then you can do the following, just say something like, let's just do give me a prompt, guys. Give me a prompt. Let's just do a spaceman driving, or a spaceman riding a horse on Mars, right? So something like that. Click generate image and let's see what happens. So you see it sends request. It's sending a request right now. And as you can see, look, on the back end, it says a prompt is a spaceman riding a horse on Mars. Then what it's doing is it's generating the image, and then while it's doing it all, afterwards it will say, if it was all successful, say file uploaded successfully. So right now this is generating through DALL 2 API an image for us by providing a prompt. Once that is done, there you go, guys. Look, file uploaded successfully. Amazing. Yes, you can see here we should have back in the response now so did we return anything back from response? I don't think we did much. Okay, anyway, so at that point we generate a response. So let's see Microsoft Azure. So let's go to our images container, refresh. Look at that, a spaceman riding a horse on Mars. So let's open it, and it says blob, and we can actually go ahead and download this image. So let's go ahead and download the image and see the image that we actually got. So I'm gonna go, oh wow, guys, look at this. Oh, look at that. A spaceman riding a horse on Mars. Amazing, right? So it actually works. So that generated we created an Azure function, a post request, and it works, right? So that used the SAS token. It successfully was able to verify that the token was valid, and then it got through. So you can see the authentication method access key is what we're using, right? The SAS token. That's damn cool, right? So now you can see we've got an API that does it, right? So now we can go ahead and connect up the front end and continue the build. So now what we want to do is basically have it. So when I click on generate or I click on use suggestion should pass this prompt to that endpoint. Generate should suggest whatever I've typed in here. So it could be A, B, C, D, E, whatever. Click generate, and then it should go ahead and make this call possible. So let's do that right now, right? So heading over to my code. Oh my God, I'm getting so mixed up with everything. So let me go ahead and minimize Postman because we don't need that right now. And I'll minimize our demo as well. So because we don't need that. Let's go. So at this point, we are going to go to our, cover that. We need to go to our front end again. So heading back into our components, our prompt input. Okay. So when we go ahead and click on the use suggestion or generate button, this is where we need to go ahead and make the magic happen, right? So prompt input. For new suggestion, we're going to go ahead use suggestion, we're going to submit a prompt, right? So in this case, so for this one or for this one, so let's do generate first. So that should just be very simple. We should have on click equals submit prompt. Okay. So we're going to create a function here called submit prompt. Now, let me just go ahead. Oh, actually what you can do is, because this is the type submit button, you don't even need to do that here. You can actually have the form on submit. So that's the submit button. You can have a submit prompt, right? You can also do that, right? So very straightforward. And then, handle submit. So, okay, so yeah, so this will be handle submit. Yeah. And now what I'm going to do is create a function above it. So I'm going to say const handle submit. And this one will have so every sort of a click handler has an event, right? So in this case, if you don't know the type definition for it, nice little trick, you do a little arrow here. And you hover over it and you can see form event, HTML form event is that. So I copy that, pop it in there, and then I can remove my handle submit. And there you go, just like that. Import the dependency and bam, I have perfect type definitions every time, right? So e.prevent default, there we go, bam. And then I'm going to say await submit prompt. So this one will just basically call the other function. And then you can do extra stuff here if you want to. I'm just making it relatively simple. Now submit prompt is going to be a function I'm going to create above here. So it's a const submit prompt equals asynchronous. So it's going to be an asynchronous function. And this one is also going to have a parameter that we pass through. And this is going to be a conditional. So it's going to say use suggestion, and it's an optional, so we don't need to pass it in. And it's a Boolean value. Okay, so if you pass in true, it will use the suggestion that was generated. If you don't pass in true, it will use the input that you had actually put in. Okay, so how do we do this now? Remember, we're disabling the buttons as well if there is no input, so it will prevent you from sort of making a mistake. So first thing I want to do is create a copy of the input. So I say input prompt equals input. Equals input. And then what I do is I can clear the input, because basically I want the user's experience to basically be the minute they hit generate, it should just do that. It should clear it. Right? I don't want it to load, because then what they might do is they might click, and it's just like a bad user experience, right? So you want to clear it out, right? And you can also console log it if you want. I'm not going to do that. So in this case, that's good. And then we can go ahead and say that if the person has typed in, so the text that we're going to send, I'm just going to call it P. So the P represents the prompt, right? So P is the prompt to send to API, right? So P is the prompt to send to API. Then here what I'm going to say is, if you passed in use suggestion, then what you should do is you should go ahead and use the suggestion. Otherwise, what I want you to do is I'm going to go ahead and check that the input prompt exists. Or if that doesn't exist, no, sorry. No, 1 minute. I've completely messed things up. So if it's suggestion, yes, that's fine. Otherwise, it'll be input prompt. Or why did I add that one in? Suggestion. Okay. I think that's fine for now. I think that's good. Yeah, I don't think I need the other one. Oh, no. Okay. Oh, actually, yeah. So if it's because sometimes your input prompt might not be there. So in this case, okay, let's leave it for now. If it errors out, I can figure it out. So then we're going to make a request to the backend. So we're going to say res This is where we make the post request to the backend. We say await fetch /API /generate image. And this is going to be a post method. The headers are going to be application JSON, and the body is going to be stringified prompt, right? So it's going to be the P, right? Then when it comes back, we're going to get the data. We're going to get the data as JSON, and then we're just going to simply say, if there was an error, you know, we'll handle this with the notifications afterwards. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So this should do it. Now, what this is doing is, firstly, it's generating the image here. So this one is going to make a call to our own API. So we need to make sure that we've actually got an API endpoint for generate image that is created, which we have. Yeah. So now what this will actually be doing is that this post request, firstly, is not correct. This needs to go to the actual generate image backend that we've created. So we need this one to go to our local host for now. So this one here, generate image. So it'll be, no, see, it's not that one you want. If you open up your execution, so remember this one, so it'll be generate image. So here it'll be generate image. Okay. So now what happens is our client makes a request to our API in our local API, which then pings our Azure function. Our Azure function then does its thing, and then it will come back and it should work. Okay. So let's give this a try right now. And let's just see if it works, right? So generate, let's go over to our, let me close some of these things because I've got too many things open right now. So let's close this, close this, close this, close this, close this. Let's make it very simple for you guys to follow me. So I'm going to open up my prompt input. There we go. And this is good so far. Yeah. So I'm just checking something. So we've got this, we've got the content JSON, blah, blah, blah. And then, okay, submit prompt. There we go. So at this point, when we do API generate image, it will make a request to my backend. So at this point, we should be fine. So I'm just going to log out here saying console log input prompt. Yeah, so we should be able to see it when I submit it. So that way I get some feedback when I inspect, so I can just know what's going on. So here, so I'm going to click on draw a dinosaur in the ocean, right? Click generate. See, draw a dinosaur in the ocean. And then what this would have done was on the network tab, this would have actually called generate an image. And you can see right now is the payload was a prompt, and you can see it's pending. So this is actually executing right now. And you can see if we were to look at the backend, you can see that it just came back successfully. Let's go down here. So file upload prompt is draw a dinosaur in the ocean. File uploaded successfully. So let's go ahead and head over here, refresh, and we should have a dinosaur in the ocean. So draw a dinosaur in the ocean.png. Amazing. That's what I'm talking about, guys. That is so sick. And we're almost at 500 likes. Just destroy that like button for the love of God, right? Destroy it. So now we've got that pretty good. So now we've got the ability to generate images, okay? And what's really awesome now is that it's very easy to go ahead and where we have our use suggestion button, here we just simply say on click, submit prompt, submit prompt true. And true would basically represent that you're using the suggestion, which means that it would use that suggestion output, okay? Which is perfect. So in this case now, if I was to go ahead and refresh, and I go ahead and click on use suggestion now, so let's go ahead and do that right now. So click on use suggestion. What we should see is that it should say it's prompt is a modern abstract oil painting of a tiger running through a forest. So we've actually gone ahead and executed the API. And then in a second, we should see that file uploaded successfully. We've got an error here, which was unexpected. Oh, because we're passing some JSON, which wasn't correctly handled. So I need to handle that a little bit better on the front end. But for now, at least the back end is still pulling in the correct thing. So like a modern abstract oil, there we go, nice. So the reason why we're getting this error, let's dive into it. So we've got res.json. So this is why. So if we go over to our API, so let me just go into our API, generate image root. So here we are going ahead and saying prompt response.text, text data, that's fine. And then inside of prompt input, prompt input. So prompt input, where we get things back, data.res.json. That's also fine. So the error must be in Azure. So when we're pulling, let's have a look at Azure. So when we're returning our text from our generate image function, I believe that this is probably where we're making mistakes. Yeah, it is here. So we're not returning anything from generate image at the moment in Azure. And that's the reason why we're getting an issue. Yeah, so here we're not returning a body. So I made a mistake here. So we should be returning a body. And here I don't really care. I don't want to return the image, it's too big. I want to do a fetching mechanism on the front end. But here we successfully upload the image. That's great. Okay. So at this point now, we should not get an error, because we have something to pass when it comes back. Okay. Now the final sort of step here is generating the images. Then we can go ahead and do the front end for getting our nice, beautiful layout done. So I'm going to go ahead and firstly create a Azure function for doing so. And this is going to be called get images. So let's create the get images function. So get images.js Azure function. And now what I'm going to do is do the appropriate imports. So again, very similar to what we previously did. And I will show you right now. So very similar imports, right? So we have all of the app, which we require for any cloud function, our credentials, the dependencies for credentials, our SAS token helper, account name, account key, the container name, which is images, the credential, which uses our account name and account key. Again, you can refactor that actually into a separate file if you want to not have repeated code like this. Blob service client we need over here, and we simply pass our account name and the credential to allow us access. Then we go ahead and create the actual endpoint, right? So in this case, we say app.http get images. This is going to be a get method. The auth level will be anonymous, and then we have our handler. Now we do need the actual context here, because I believe we do use it. And then we have our function like so. Okay, so this one right here is, what am I messing up? Yeah, there we go. There we go. Yep. So we got the handler here. So for the handler now, I need to basically create a container client connection. So that way we've got access already to the service, the Blob storage service. Then we want to get the images container, like I've said previously. Once we have the images container, Mike says, what's up from Oregon? What's up? What's that? Oregon. Sorry, Oregon. Oh my God. Yeah. Now what we're going to do is we're going to have two things. We're going to have one, which is the image URLs, an empty array, and we're going to have a generate an SAS token so we can access our backend. So what I'm essentially trying to do now is I'm trying to pull all of these, right? So what I'm about to do is list all of the blobs in this container. So each one is a blob. So you see blob, right? Blobs are amazing data type for storing media files like images, pictures, that kind of thing, right? Guys, we're almost at 500 likes as well. Keep on destroying that like button, right? So at this point, we're going to go ahead and basically make a request to all of these things and get those answers back. And then we're basically going to generate a list from this. So I'm going to have all these file names as an end result. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that right now. So first I say for, I'll show you, we do for await, and then we say const blob of, we're doing a nice little loop here. We're saying container client dot list blobs flat. Right, so this returns an async iterable iterator to list all the blobs under a specified account. Okay, so this will go ahead and give me all of the blobs back. Right, and we're waiting for each one. So now what I do with this information is I go ahead and I basically create a URL for each image. So basically, see, I've got the blob name and the SAS token, so I can access that image. If I don't have the SAS token at the end of the image, it's basically going to say you don't have access or permission to view these images because you weren't permitted a SAS token, right? Or if it was after half an hour, they would have to generate another token. So now what we do is we create a URL. Now this URL is perfect because that exact URL can be rendered on the front end as a image URL. So then what we do is we say image URLs dot push, and I basically want to push the URL and the name. Okay, so I want to go ahead and push in the image URLs. So now at the end of it, we have all list of all the URLs, but we also have the name because I want to use the name on the front end for the keys. Okay, now what I can then do is I want to sort it, because basically what we'll find will happen remember I stored the file name underscore a timestamp .png. PNG for the image, right? The extension. So what we're going to now do, before we return all the list of images to the front end, I'm going to basically pass those strings. So what I'm going to say is the first portion of the string is the file name. So I need to basically do some string manipulation, and I need to go ahead and say, split that string up and give me everything after the underscore. Okay, now after the underscore, I have the timestamp, but I then have the timestamp .png. So then I say split everything based on the dot, so .png, and then give me the first part, right? So then what I do is I basically have only the timestamp from the file name. Then I do something called a sort function, which I teach in 0 to Full Stack Hero. Feel free to check it out at papareact.com/course. And basically what you're going to do is we're going to do a simple sort function, which is just going to check the first timestamp against another one and sort the entire list before we return it to the front end. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say const sorted image URLs equals image URLs, so image URLs dot sort. And basically what you have here is you have your A and B. So A is going to be the first item in that list, or as you iterate through, it'll be the first element from when you're doing the comparison. The second one will be the second element. Then the second cycle will be the second and third. The third cycle will be third and fourth, and so forth, right? And it'll keep swapping them until it sorts everything. So we're going to say const a name equals, and basically remember what I said, we're going to split based on all those different things, and we're going to pop, right? So the shorthand I've done here is a nice bunch of, it's pretty cool, right? So basically what we're doing is, let's imagine we had a file name called draw a dinosaur, right? So draw a giant dinosaur like that. So let's imagine that's a timestamp, right? So what it's doing is it's splitting at the underscore. So then I have this section and this section in an array. Then I'm saying pop, right? So pop is giving me the end result. So it's basically giving me this. So at this point, after that, I basically gotten rid of this bit, right? So up until here, and then I do two strings. So up until here is basically getting me this. Then what I do is I have dot split. So dot split gives me an array where this is the first element and this is the second element, and shift returns the first element of that array. So then I get this. So basically now, after doing that, like kind of, that combination here, you're basically going ahead and getting that from the original title, right? So then we do the same with B name, and then all we do is we return B name minus A name, and it will start sorting all of those timestamp values, right? So basically now you're sorting all those image URLs by doing that. That's a lovely little ES6 sorting function if you didn't know how to do it, okay? So once you've done that, I'm just gonna add in something to say like that function was actually processed for this one, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm gonna return something. So now here, I'm not gonna do a simple return that we were doing before. I'm gonna say return, but in the JSON body, I'm going to say image URLs are going to be the key, and I'm going to return the sorted image URLs, okay? There we go. Pat Peacher says, topic breakdown, 100%, explain clearly in 0 to Full Stack, trusted review, my coding career path to get a lot of since I've joined Papa. Pat Peacher is a student in 0 to Full Stack Hero, and yes, she's literally saying it as it is. We teach it inside there, and all of my students know this kind of stuff, the sorting functions. You know what I'm talking about in the coaching course, so yeah, it makes sense here, right? So definitely, if you want to be a part of that awesome community, check out papareact.com/course. Right, so at this point we've got our return, so that's great. So now I should be able to go ahead and actually access this. So let's go ahead and remove that. That was from previously. So I'm going to close this Azure function instance, and then I'm going to go ahead and say npm run start, and that's going to go ahead and hopefully, if it all works, give me a URL for get images. There we go, get images. So now if I run this is a get request, so I can actually throw this in the browser, and I should get all the images back. There we go, guys. Look at that. That's sick. I literally got these back. Look, nice. And they've even sorted it based on the order. So these are all being sorted on the back end and returned to the front end. So that's awesome. Now we've created our Azure endpoint. Okay, so now we've got the Azure endpoint. I now go to my front end and I go over to my app, API, get images, root. And you can see we don't have anything here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an API endpoint here for our local side. And this is fairly straightforward, right? So we've got the simple syntax for Next.js 13.2, which is basically it's going to be a get request that we're supporting here. We're going to go ahead and get the response. And this is going to be an await fetch. Okay. And this is going to be using, making a call to that endpoint that we just went ahead and retrieved, which was this one right here. So it's get images. So over here. Yes. So we're going to go ahead and fetch from there. And then we're going to go ahead and say, as a second argument, we're not caching, right? So you can optimize this more and, have caching rules and that. But for now, I'm making every request be dynamic. So it's basically a server-side render each time, right? But you can feel free to optimize as you wish, right? Now, remember, I returned it back as JSON body, right? So what I'm going to actually do here is return it as a blob type. So this will actually give me back the blob. And then what I do is I return the text back from that blob by doing blob.text, and then I pass that. So basically I get it back in the form of a blob. So it's a lot of data that comes back. Then I pass it. Then I basically say const data equals JSON dot pass the text data, and this will give me back a list of URLs. Okay, so then I return it back in a stringified fashion. So then I basically go ahead and stringify the data, and I return it back with a 200. So now I can make a request to my / Jay, I see you. I can make a request to my / API get images, and then that will go ahead and actually help me out, right? So now I can actually go ahead and do this from my front end. So let's go to my, a lot of people say, yo, Papa, I see you. So now what we're going to do is go to, I need to create a images component. So where are we going to use that? I'm going to use this inside of so where we have our page.tsx, right? This is where I'm essentially going to be rendering a very simple page in itself. It's going to be simply here. I'm going to have the main tag, and this is going to have a MX margin of 0, but on a but on the largest medium-sized screen, it's going to have a margin of 10. So margin of 10. Actually, to be honest, I think for now we're good. Let's just do margin x to 0. And this will render out images, right? And I'm going to create this component now. So this component is going to be inside of the components folder. So here we're going to have our images.tsx, RFCE, bam, go up here, get rid of that. And now here is where we do some magic, right? So I'm going to pull in my images folder from components, and we're going to go ahead and do the following. So inside of my images, firstly, it's going to be a client component, because I'm going to have a few things like useSWR making calls here. So this is going to be a use client component. So it's a client component as opposed to a server-side component, because remember in Next.js 13, everything is a server-side component until you make it a client component. So I'm going to import the following, and you can see I need a special lib helper here to fetch the images. So very simply, I go into my files, go into app, my lib folder. Where is it? Lib on the upper level. And where we have this similar structure, I'm going to do essentially the same thing, but basically I'm doing it for where is it gone? Fetching images, right? So basically I'm going to create a new file here called fetchimages.ts, and it simply is the same following protocol. It just makes a fetch to get images. We're not storing the cache or caching data, and then it returns me a helper function. So we do that. Then we go back to our images folder, and then we can basically go ahead and successfully import that as needed. So that is freaking out why. So let's just double check. /lib /fetch images. There we go. Okay. So now that we have our images folder good, I've got so many files open on my screen. My eyes are a bit crazy right now. I am going to basically make a pull to those images. So we need to go ahead and basically set up the same thing with useSWR. So what we do is, remember, you get the following from it. So we say you get the data, which I'm renaming as images. You get the isLoading state. The mutate state basically just calls this again, but I'm renaming it to refresh images because that makes more sense. And then we've got isValidating, right? So in this case, we've got fetch images being called. And then what we're doing is we're caching it as images. You can really cache this however you want though. You could say, if you really wanted to, API /get images as the URL endpoint, right? But honestly, that doesn't matter too much, right? But in this case, let's just, okay, we'll do the API endpoint. It doesn't make a sense. That doesn't make a difference. And then I'm going to have a type definition for, remember, we stored the images and we returned them back with a name and URL. So I'm creating a type definition. I love the chat right now. Yeah. And then inside of the images, this is where we can actually go ahead and render them. So first things first, I need to see if I'm getting images back. So let's go ahead and render out the images and see what happens. So if we get these images back, guys, I swear to God, I'm gonna lose my mind because it works. All right, so we go to console and we get images. Oh, let me refresh. And we've got ignore that image. Oh, yo, look at that. Oh my God, beautiful. Look at that images. The images are coming down. So just like that, we've created a Next.js API, Azure function that's connecting to it. We're returning all that stuff. It's just so powerful. Like, it's so cool when you learn how to do this stuff. And I'm confident I can make any student at any level get to this level and just be able to build this stuff confidently. I am so confident of that. That's what we do in Zero to Full Stack Hero. Remember, if any of this kind of stuff went over your head, definitely go to this URL, aka.ms/sunny, fill in the form, click submit, not skip, click submit, and then use the GitHub repo, which I've given you for free, which has the code inside of it. So if you get stuck, you can go ahead and debug it yourself and that kind of thing, okay? Somebody says, when I type RFC in, you need the ES7 snippets extension if you want to do RFC tricks, okay? So there we go. Bam, that works. So now what we do is we simply have some front-end fun and we go ahead and render this out. So let's go ahead and have some fun and render all this information out. And I'm actually going to go ahead and bump the music up because this is where we get into our front-end coding style. So we're going to have a little bit of fun now. So first things first, we have the div, and then this is going to do CSS grid. So we're going to have the div, and then inside of here, we're going to have another div. And here, we're going to go ahead and do, we've got the images themselves. So we're going to say images dot, right? I'm saying, and we're going to say optional chaining. So if it's not yet ready, then it's going to go ahead and not crash by having optional chaining. So we're going to say image URLs dot map, and then that could also be undefined. And then we're going to say for every single image, and each image, I'm going to manually cast it to that image type. Sometimes Copilot is too aggressive. Yeah. And then I'm going to do implicit return. So normal parentheses brackets. Okay. And then here we have a div, right? And then the div has to have a key when you're mapping through things, because otherwise your re-rendering is crap. So do not do that. Okay. So there we go. And then we've got the image dot name is going to be the key here. And then inside of your div, I'm going to have the image itself, right? So image / and we need to import this image from next image, which we've already done. I'll say see. And then we've got the source, which is going to be the image URL. The alt is going to be just image name. We can do if that's fine. The height is going to be 800. So I'm just going to use 800 as set value. The width is going to be 800. And then the class name, I'm going to style my image. The width should be full, rounded, small corners. Shadow should be a 2XL. A drop shadow should be here as well. Drop shadow large. And I want to do a -z index of 10 because I want to layer this nice overhaul effect afterwards on it. Right, so I hit save. And what you'll find now is I get a big error. Okay, now this is happening because remember, we're using the next image component, and when we use the next image component, we need to whitelist the domain that the images are coming from. And the reason why I left it to this point is because I'll show you a little shortcut. It actually helps us out. So it says you need to add the host name, this right here, to your next config. So it just saves you a bit of hassle. You just literally copy that, go back over to your next config, and simply add it to your list of whitelisted domains, right? So add it, bam, over there, boom, right? And then because you change your next config, you're gonna have to restart your server on the next side, right? Not your Azure side, you have to restart on the next side. So there we go, we reset that, boom. And then we go ahead and do our thing, and there you go. And now we should see images, wait for it. Do we see images? Wait for it, oh, there we go, look at that. Look at that. We've got dinosaurs, tigers. It's just, it's so beautiful. I love it. It's so cool when you see the stuff that you're trying to do work. It's just amazing. Right now, you see it's huge. This is not ideal, right? So I'm going to show you how we can basically perfectly optimize that and get it in the right way that we want. And we're going to do this with the magic of CSS grid, okay? So Uruguay in the house. What's up, dude? Good stuff. Guys, we're almost at 500 likes. Just destroy that like button for me, please. Helps share the channel and helps share these videos to more developers, because just imagine if you're learning something. Let's try and get this out to as many developers as possible. All you have to do is just hit that thumbs up button, right? So here we're going to say it should be a grid, and then a gap of 4 should be present, right? So gap of 4. And then basically on a small mobile device, it should always be columns 1. And then what we do is we step up the grid columns as we get to a bigger size. So grid columns 2 on a medium size, a large screen, grid columns 3. Yeah. And then on a extra large screen, grid columns 4 and so forth, right? So grid columns 4. And then I think I finished it off on a 2XL. Oops. Oh God, 2XL. And this is going to be grid columns 5. There we go, yeah? And then I'm going to say padding X of 0, and on the medium screens, padding X of 10. Right, so padding X of 10. So on the mobile view, there's no padding, and then on the bigger screen, it gets bigger. So now we hit save, and look at this, wait for it. Oh my God, look at that. Oh, it's so beautiful. Look at that. Oh, it's just lovely when it works. That's just silky smooth. Look at that, it works perfect. Yeah? And now, what we can do is I actually want the first image to take up like a block over here. So I want it to take up 2 rows and 2 columns, the first image only. Yeah, and CSS Grid is so good at that because we can actually use like, you know, span 2 or that kind of logic to get that down. So now what I can do is I can say for the div here, where we have the key, that sort of thing, we can have the class name and I can have some string interpolation here. So I can go and do square curly brackets, backticks, and this is going to be relative because we're going to have a little trick going on in a second. I'm going to have a cursor help when you hover over it. Yeah, that makes sense because I'm going to do something cool. And then I'm going to have this some JavaScript. Now here, what I'm going to say if the index, so basically here where we get this back, if we get the second argument back, which is actually a number, and this tells you like, is it the first item, second item, third item? So it starts from 0, 1, 2, so forth. So if I equals 0, I know it's the first element. Okay, and if the first element is there, then I'm going to say the first element should span 2 columns and still 2 rows. Okay, and then I want to have some logic when I basically scroll over it. So I want to have like a hover and all that kind of thing. So basically what I'll do is I'm going to add that hover stuff here before, and then there you go. So now what we've done here is that looks horrible. One second, I've completely broken something. Let's just go ahead and fix this quickly. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of relative cursor. I think it's because I've got this and I need to figure something out. One second. Okay, so let's do relative. There we go. So now, yeah. So there you go. Firstly, get rid of the relative for now. I have an idea. I'll show you something. Yeah. So firstly, that works. Yeah. So that looks very nice on like it looks proper like an art gallery now. Yeah. And then what we're gonna do is, after that is done, so after this, then we're going to add in hover scale and that kind of stuff, right? So now you can see if I hover over it, you see we get this nice little effect, right? And same here, and same on a small screen, right? Now here it doesn't work correctly because of the medium screen, right? Or the small screen. And I'll show you how we can fix that in just a second. So this should only take place, on a medium screen and above. Yeah, so it doesn't make sense to span rows on screens like that. So there you go, that's why. Yeah, so that's why I was working. And then we do make it relative. I'll show you a little trick. So because this div is now relative, yeah. So someone says, what's the name of this song right now? This is called Everything Instrumental Version by Tilden Park, right? So there you go. So there you go. Now it's fixed that issue. And then what we're going to do is when I hover over it, I want to have this nice little effect. So I want to create a white div that hovers. When I hover over it, it just suddenly appears, right? And the way that I do that is I have a div next to it. All right. But firstly, the parent container has to be white. Right, so it has it has to be relative. So in this case, I say div, and then I've got a p tag, and that p tag will have the text of the image, right? So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a string here. I'm going to strip the PNG and the timestamp out of it. Okay. So someone said, what should I type in input company? I'm a little confused. Oh, so you just literally type in NA if you don't have a company. If you don't have a company, just type in not applicable. It's fine. Or just put your name. It's fine. Yeah, on the Microsoft form. Okay. Now for the p tag, I'm going to say text should be, last name, we're going to say text should be in the center, font should be light, and the text should be large and padding of 5. And then for the div on the outside, I'm going to say that this is where the row kind of trick comes in, right? So as you can see now, it's got the writing on the top, but I want this to be absolutely positioned over it with a white background, and opacity only comes through when you hover over it. So what we do is, because we're relative, the parent container is relative, we can do absolute positioning within that div. So we can say absolute flex, justify center, items should be centrally aligned. And then we're going to say the width should be 4, the height should be 4, the background should be white, the opacity by default is 0. And then when you hover over it, the opacity becomes 80%, right? And then I want to do a transition on the opacity, so you get this nice little effect. And then we're going to say the duration is 200 milliseconds and a Z index of 10, so that way it's layered above the image, right? Because the image is minus 10. We're going to say this one is positive 10, so that way now it's layered. So now look, we get a layering effect where it's sitting perfectly on top of the image. And just like that, oh my goodness, it's so clean. Like when you get this down, like it's icing on the cake. All right, so look at that, it looks so clean. And then now you get all this kind of coolness, right? Now, the thing is, right, so if we've got this working well, but firstly, when I actually come to this page, it doesn't tell me anything. Like it doesn't tell me when it's loading and so forth. So firstly, I want to update this UI so that way it does tell me some stuff, right? And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to say if it's loading, then I'm going to add in a p tag which simply says loading. Okay, so I'm going to simply add in, get rid of this, and I'll show you how we do it. So we simply say based on the is loading from the above, we say a p tag and it just says loading AI generated art, and I've simply done an animate post on it and centered the text. So now if I refresh, loading AI generated images until it's ready, and then bam, it pops in, right? So beautiful, works really nicely, works well. Yeah. So the next step is I want to have a button on the bottom right which will refresh the images, right? So in that case, if I added a new image, it will refresh and I can actually go ahead and check what happened. So I'm going to add in a button here saying refresh images. But the way I check this is I basically say if it's not loading, yeah, so if you're not already loading and it's invalidating, then you can say it's refreshing. Otherwise, it will just say refreshing images, right? So now this button here, simply if we click it, it doesn't do anything. But what we want to do is simply just call refreshing images. So all it's going to do is fetch the images again when you click it, and that causes it is validating to become true. But is loading, you don't want it to come up when you first are loading the images because it doesn't make sense. So you basically disable it for that, so the text shows, and it is validating is triggered when you refresh. So when you call this, is validating gets called. Okay, so here we say on click, and then I'm going to say refresh images, right? But I'll show you a little trick now. So if you just did refresh images, what you're going to find is it's just going to get rid of everything. So if I do this, like refresh images, it doesn't, like, it's not an optimistic update, right? So I know it looks like it's working, but it's a bit sketchy, right? What you do is you pass in the old images and you get like a nice optimistic update, and that means that it doesn't kind of get rid of everything, because what can happen sometimes is this stuff just like disappears and comes back. So we're going to do a nice optimistic update, and then it will use the images when we're refreshing it, and then it will replace them once it comes back with a response, right? So that's pretty cool. And then for this button, I want to have it floating down here. So for the styles for that, I'm going to show you in a shorthand how we can do it. I basically just done some absolute positioning, or fixed positioning, sorry. So I'm just going to paste it in, and it's layered at Z20 to save a bit of time. So fixed bottom right, bottom 10, bottom right, background 490% opacity so you can see through it a bit, text white, bit of padding, rounding corners. When I hover, the background changes a little bit darker. Focus outline none, focus ring, so when you click it you can see something, and the font bold and Z20, so it's on top of all the other tiles. Now you can see, look, that's lovely. Look at that, really nice. And when I click it, refreshing, and then refresh images comes back when it's done. Yeah, so that works pretty nice. And what we can actually see here to prove this is working, if I go to this and I go down here, you can see if I click refresh images, you see how it's calling it every time I do it. So it's actually making that request to our backend, which works, right? So really nice. So now let's try and do it. So can you try, if there are new images and you generate new images, instead of getting all the images, try adding on your last generated image. Yes, you can do that. You can do that. And that's actually probably a more efficient way. And what you would do is you would make the last image return. The only problem is let's say loads of people are coming onto your site. You're only going to add in your last image, right? So that's why I've gone with the generic overall pull in the images approach. But that is a very good question. I like the thinking behind it. Harsh Patel, thank you so much for the $10 donation. It says, thanks for all you do. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for that. So at this point, we're looking pretty damn good, right? So this is looking good, but we have a problem. So let's imagine if I go ahead and create a black and white oil painting of a child playing in a park. So let's use the suggestion, which means that I'm creating a modern black and white oil painting of a child playing in the park. Now, when this comes back, this will not update, right? So I'll show you. So look, this will not update. So let's go ahead and wait for this to come back. So once it says file uploaded successfully, it won't come back. And I'll show you how we're going to address this problem. And this is because this image component is not connected to this image input prompt, right? So I'm going to show you how we can correct this now using useSWR in a very, very nice caching efficient strategy, right? So let's wait until that uploads. So that should be done in a second. Sometimes it has a little delay. Maybe it takes longer to paint that picture or whatever it's doing. I'm not sure, but it's doing it on the back end. We could always try and trigger another one. I always find if I do, yeah, there you go, file uploaded successfully, and you can see it's not here, right? It's not here, and we're not revalidating on focus, so it's not going to refresh. So if I click refresh images now, you can see it then pulls it in. Okay, so the refreshing the images actually pulled it in. Wow, that's amazing, right? That's crazy. So it pulled it in. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to make it so when it finishes this prompt, it's going to simply basically refresh this fetch images. But how do we do this if we're in a separate file, right? So we don't have something like Redux here. We don't have any of this stuff. So how the hell do you do that, Sonny? Well, it's actually a lot easier than you think with useSWR. So provided that your caching key is the same. So in this case, the caching key being API images or whatever you decide to call this. If this is images, providing that this is the same, right? So if I change this to images, I'll show you. We can then go into the other components of the prompt input and actually pull in what we need for the ability to do what we need. So I'll show you. So let's go into prompt input. And then inside of the prompt input, now what we can do is we can say const, and we can just simply pull in the mutate function. And we're going to simply call this one update images, or you can call it refresh images, really doesn't matter. Use SWR. Yeah. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and say, remember the key was images that we decided. The fetching function was fetch images, which we're going to need to import from our library. And then we're going to go ahead and say revalidate on focus, false. Okay. So now I've got access to this. And what happens here, which is amazing, is inside of submit prompt, right? After we upload the picture, we can cause a refresh to occur by simply pulling in the additional pictures. Now, after all that is said and done, simply put, what it will do is it will cause a refresh to occur. So I'm going to paint a spiral galaxy in 4K resolution. Use suggestion. So now it's going to make that request. So I've actually generated that. So prompt is a modern abstract painting, and I'm not going to do anything. And you're going to see it now pop in with that image. After that's done, we then have notifications to add, and then I think we're in the clear to deploy. So you see that? Look, it did it. It literally did it by itself. And that's incredible. That means that you have a beautiful decoupled code, which is clean, good programming practices. You're not passing, your setter function from one place to another and then something can break. Now all you're doing is you're relying on the caching key, which you should be probably putting in a constant file somewhere else, so that way you don't mess this all up. But then with that, you get exactly what you want, which is incredible. Yeah. So at this point now, this is looking amazing. So let's now add in the ability to, let's firstly test it ourselves with, let's just say a red balloon on a white background. Let's say generate, and you see, look, a red balloon on a white background. So while that's coming back, we can go ahead and test out the next thing. So we're now going to add in React Hot Toast notifications, so that way the user knows what's happening on the front end. Otherwise, right now you're kind of waiting, like, did it work or did it not work? And look, wait for it. Look at that. Oh, this is so clean. A red balloon on a white background. Clean, right? So at this point, that's pretty cool. Smash the thumbs up button if you're enjoying this, by the way. 500 likes are so close by, right? I'm going to keep it coming as well. So At this point now we're going to add in react.toast notifications. So the way we do this is it's react.toast notifications. So you simply go to the react.toast notification website, and we're going to add it in. So I'm using npm in this instance. So I'm going to grab this. Well, I think I'm using npm. So we're using npm. So I'm going to go over to my I'm going to go up to the correct directory, which is the main directory. Okay, let's not do that. Let's just go ahead and create another one. So there we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and say npm I react.toast. Now, because we can't actually, so the way they would tell you to install it is you have to wrap your entire app with the toaster provider. Now, you have to put this toaster element at the highest element in your highest point in your app. Now, you can't do that in a Next.js 13 app because you're using server-side components. So the way you do it is you create a client wrapper or client provider. And to do that is fairly straightforward. All you got to do is go into your components, create a client provider.tsx. This will be a client component wrapper in some essence. Then what we do is we import the toaster inside of this file. So we pop it in like so. And then we're going to go ahead and do the following. So where we had the trick that I like to do is I go to my app, I get the layout, I basically copy the layout, right? And then I pop this in, but I don't use a lot of this stuff. So I get rid of all of this. I don't use that, obviously. And then I still like this part, right? So what I do is I get rid of all of this and I just make this like an empty fragment, a React fragment, and I pop the toaster in. And then what you can do is you still have the children. So I like to use the layout as a little shortcut for me. So I always forget sometimes what I actually need to do there. So I get the children now. And then I can basically position this. So I can say position, bottom, center. And now because this accepts children, what you can do is you go to your layout component. And obviously, by the way, you can use the new metadata in Next.js 13.2. So you can actually say AI art gallery. And then the description, this will change the head of the page. This is really good for SEO purposes. You can say generated by the pup fam. Let's go. All right, good. And then pup fam AI, yeah, we got to represent pup AI art gallery, right? So at this point we can get rid of that as well. I'm going to go ahead and wrap my entire stuff. So client provider with what I was doing. So I did export. Yep, I did export it. So here what I can do is I go around the entire app and I get client provider, and then I just need to simply import it into my app. So I go here and I import it. So I go and say the following, and I can just do at there to make the alias work. And now your app should still be working. It should still be fine. But now you can have that ability to place it at the highest level, and you don't break your server rendered component structure. So if you ever need to use higher order components, but you know, in Next.js 13, everything's a server component by default, that's how you would do it. So if you ever need to have like any kind of context provider or theme provider, you can do it that way. And then that would be a client-side component. It doesn't mean everything underneath is a client-side component either, okay? You can actually still do some clever stuff there. I thought that was what it did, but it didn't. Right, so at this point, we can now add in the toaster notification, which is fairly easy. We just go to our prompt input. So we head over to a prompt input, and where we have submit prompt, I'm going to base it all off the promise of when we are generating an image. So what we do here is we say notification prompt. Firstly, I need to import my toast from react.toast. So let's go up here. And then I'm going to go down to submit prompt, and where we have the input prompt itself, I'm going to have a notification prompt. Okay. And then I'm going to slice it to make it a shorter prompt. Otherwise, imagine I don't want this whole text to come up in the prompt. You might want it, but I didn't, right? So it's going to be either the input prompt or the suggestion. Okay. If you have an input prompt, then it will be that. Otherwise, it will be the suggestion. Or you can actually just go ahead and say, if it was to be honest, it would be the prompt. So actually, let's do this. Let's do underneath here. And then let's just make it notification prompt will be P. Yep, there you go. And then you have the correct one, right? And then you do notification prompt slice 20. That means you basically got up to the last one. And then we create a notification. So the way we do this is we say const notification equals toast.loading. And this is for the ID, so we can dismiss the same one afterwards. We say DALL is creating the short version of your notification. So it'll be like ... afterwards, right? And then after it's done, what we can then say is here, we can do the try data. We can basically check the data to see if there was an error. Now, if there was an error on the response, what we can say is toast.error with the data.error, else toast.success, right? Now, what you do is you simply go ahead and we actually pass in the ID notification there. So what this will do is it will replace the existing notification that we had signed here to these ones. So then it'll become toast.success. Your AI generated R has been, your AIR has been generated and so forth. So let's try it out now. So ChatGPT is thinking of a thing. Let's do a sunset in the desert. Use suggestion, click it, and boom, look at that, guys. A modern abstract photo of sunset in the desert, but I've cut it afterwards because you don't want it too long, right? On a phone, for example. And now now your user's not sitting there thinking, is it working or is it not working? And that kind of thing. And you can still go ahead and use the app, right? So that you can literally go ahead and say, while it's doing it, you can literally do something like, imagine it, look at that, it looks lovely, right? So people celebrating a special outdoor occasion, use suggestion. I'm gonna say draw a iPad and then generate as well. And look, and we can have two and they stack up, right? And thank you so much for the $10 donation again, Abo Adamo. You're amazing, dude. That's awesome. Suraj from Saudi Arabia. We've got Saudi in the house. What's up? That's amazing. Middle East representing. Awesome to see you guys here. Draw an iPad, generate a modern oil painting of a group of people. Oh, that's not an iPad, but it's close, right? I guess that's some sketchy Apple Pencil, but you can see that that's lovely. It works just as we expect it. Now, how many of you are loving this build right now? We actually popped over 500 likes. That's incredible to see. Oh my God, this is awesome, guys. I just want to get a nicer picture than that up. Let's do a base color. Yeah, there we go. Let's just use that one. So that now you've got a nice UI, everything's looking beautiful. And I think with that said, we've actually gone ahead and done it. So now what we need to do is we now need to go ahead and maybe yes, you can trigger refresh. Okay, so images will show without user clicking. No, I've already done that, godlike. So this is actually doing it now. So you don't need to do, I don't have to click refresh images. What's actually happening now is we're using useSWR, and every time a new image is created, so for example, look, I'm not clicking refresh images here. I click it, I do this, and it says your AI joins an image. So I got penalty for doing the same one. Let's try it again. Sunset over a lake. So create an abstract on drawing of a sunset over a lake. And now check, Byte Bounce has been here since the start. Killed it. Thank you, dude. I appreciate you. Just smash the like button to show that support. Look at this. Look, I'm not going to hit refresh images. It basically re-triggers the get images call. And then what will happen is, because it's using the same cache key, it will then replace where it's being rendered. So that's literally it. I didn't have to do anything. Yes. Oh my God, that's beautiful. Wow. That's literally a piece of art you can put on your wall. Like, honestly, wow. So at this point, I think we can now go ahead and look at that. Oh, it's just so nice. I will say, Sunny and Jay, you guys are doing amazing. I really appreciate the Pop Punk community. I appreciate you, dude. So thank you for tuning in. That's awesome, man. So at this point, we are now on to deployment, right? So first things first, we're going to basically step this in the correct way. First thing we're going to do is deploy the Azure functions. Then I'm going to swap the URLs out. Now, as I mentioned, you can do the little check to see if in production, then use your real dynamic production URLs, and then otherwise use localhost. But for today, I'm just going to swap it out to be simple. We're going to deploy our Azure functions so that they're live and up. Then we're going to go ahead and deploy our Vercel app to where it needs to be. So let's go ahead and do that right now. I just want to check something as well. Vercel, does it come out? No, okay, so there we go. I haven't got the extension yet. So at this point now, what we do is, so inside of our Azure, right, what we have here is, let me close everything first. So inside of Azure, we have our local settings.json. Now inside of local settings.json, I'm not going to show it because it's got all the keys and everything there. But basically, what we have here is a bunch of your config stuff, right? So all of your config stuff is in local settings.json. Now, if I go over to, remember, don't forget you got the access to the code here on the first link in the description. So if I go over to my Azure functions, so if we go back over here now to my Azure functions, so the function app, what you'll find is if I go to configuration, so you can just type in settings configuration, you'll see we have the environment files here, the environment variables here. Okay, and then what you'll find is, look, you've got your different keys and stuff like that. Now it's working locally because we have the file, but notice how some of my things, such as my my account key, my account name, that's not here. So how do I push my local settings up? Well, it's very easy. Command-Shift-P, we type in Azure Storage, and then we type in settings. No, is it Azure Storage? No, Azure Functions, sorry. Settings, upload local settings. So this one right here, simply hit enter on that. And then what you'll find is it will ask you which app most likely. So give it a second, and then we find the app. So in this case, AI Image Generator YouTube app. So we click it. And now what this is doing is it's uploading my local settings JSON file to the actual Azure Functions. So this means that when I deploy it, so you see successfully uploaded. So now when I deploy it, if I click refresh now, yep, we click on continue, you should see those new environment variables in Azure. So now you can see, look, OpenAI key, OpenAI organization, and you can see that's correct. And we even have the account key and account name. So this is perfect right now, right? So we have all the stuff that we need. And now with that said, so now we've basically set the environment variables in Azure. So now what we can do is we can go ahead and say Command-Shift-P, Azure Functions, and then we can go ahead and do the following. We can say deploy to function app. And then what this will do is this will actually deploy all of my source URLs to a real app. So in this case, we can select our app, hit enter. And what this will do is you have to be careful because it will override all of the previous deployments. So we're going to click on deploy, that's fine. And what it's doing now is it's deploying these actual URLs over to Azure. And because it's got the correct the correct environment variables, it's working. So in this case, it says deploying, click here to review the output files. So let's go ahead and see if we can get that. Why can't I see that? Okay, let me just see that 1 second. Let's check the output window. There we go. So you can see now it's going ahead and it's starting the deployment. It's doing everything it needs. Added the following settings. That's what happened before. So if you want to find this, you go to output, you click on this and you see Azure Functions, and you can see all the nice little output stuff. So this is pretty handy to see. So what this is doing now is you can go ahead. Sunny is live in smart room. Well done. Light is reducing dark, so you have to be more focusing. Yeah, the whole place is smart. I'm not joking. It's literally super clever. This apartment, I've made it so clever. I'm a techie. What do you expect? It has to be, right? So in this case now, syncing triggers, deployment successful. Once it says querying triggers, what you'll find is it will give us back the URL endpoints. Marios, what is up, dude? Good to see Pop Fan members tuning in. What is up, man? So you see, like, querying says deployment complete. That's what I'm talking about. So now what we can see, there's two ways of checking this. Firstly, it will give us a bunch of URLs right now, and we're going to use those URLs in just a second. So let's go ahead and see right now. 1 second. So let's pop this to the side. Let's move this over here. And what we'll see is we should see all of our triggers live and deployed. So give it a second. Give it a second. It'll take a minute. All right. So while that's doing that, I can go over to my functions here, and you should see, yeah, there you go. Look, they're there. They're literally here. They're live. Yeah. So the app is currently, that's fine. We can do this. And then, so basically that is live. So that will give us the thing. And then if we click on Azure, we go here to function app, AI image generator functions. You'll literally get the URLs here as well. And I think we can actually copy the URLs here as well. So this is why the extensions are very good. So that's not giving me it right at the moment. That's still reading. So just give it a second. It's querying. Okay, so it takes a little bit of time sometimes. That's fine. There you go. So we got the different things. If we right click, copy function URL. So if I was to click on, for example, get images, you can see if I was to paste this in, we actually get, look, that's a real API endpoint. So if I click that, look at this, guys. Bam, I actually get it. That's awesome. That's amazing. And it actually works. It's a real endpoint and it's working. So now what I can do is go through my code where I had my different files. So in this case, we've got the generate image and so forth. So yeah, so in this case now we go to our files. Let's go to our, hide this for a second, go to your app, API. And by the time this should have, yeah, there you go. So it came back eventually. But you see, you got all the URLs here as well, yeah? the one that gets passed, the HTTP trigger URLs. So these are live now in Azure, right? So now it's actually deployed. So we've got the Azure URLs. We go to our app endpoints, and instead of these ones now, I'm going to use them ones. So instead of that, we're going to go to our Azure, and then here I'm going to say generate image, copy. Oops, no. Oh God, I've actually, oops. I say execute it. So this one, I'm going to go ahead and no, don't do that. Cancel. Yeah. Oh, but that's really cool, actually. You can actually generate it from here. I did not know that. The enter request body. Wow. So here you could do prompt, Microsoft Fair Play. You can say draw a dinosaur in a blue lagoon. I don't know what's up with me and dinosaurs as well. Enter. And that will actually, oh wow, that's cool. Yeah, so you can actually test it that way as well. Now you know, right? And then in this case, we can go ahead and paste it in. So that's live. Obviously, you can use, I would recommend that you actually did like proper environment variables for URLs here and constant files, but I'm just trying to show you the point, right? So we've got this get images. Oh, look at the Papa Farm anthem. Come on, let's go. And then we've got the get images here. So here we're going to do get images, the same thing. Copy our function URL, pop it in. And again, I would make it so that when you're in your production environment, oops, sorry guys. When you're in your production environment, you're doing your local, like basically you just do a check here, which is if it's in production, you do local, otherwise you do your main. I just want to show you this, it works. And then the final one is ChatGPT suggestions. So here, this song will never get old. I swear to God, I love it. It reminds me so much of the Papa Fam and the amazing community that we built. And then let's go ahead and copy this one. Bam, pop it in there. And then you see it. So now you've got your ChatGPT suggestions, all that kind of stuff running off your actual endpoint. So let's test the app and see if it works. Let's refresh the app. And you see ChatGPT is still thinking of suggestions. It's still working. A modern abstract painting of a house. Okay, awesome. Look, my dinosaur in the blue lagoon came out. So let's go ahead and use this suggestion. And this is happening off real Azure endpoints right now. So this is happening off real Azure endpoints right now. Can you have custom URLs? I'm pretty sure you can, yes. So in this case, look, that's happened. That's actually been, that actually fetched from a real Azure endpoint, and that's perfect. That's working. Look, this is all working from real Azure endpoints. So the final step now, guys, is we need to go ahead and push to Vercel. Right? So basically, before I push to Vercel, I want to mention, if you wanted to get to this point, or you're following me and maybe at some point you got a bit lost, because it's going to happen, it's natural, it's debugging, a lot of stuff's happening, then remember, you can check the first link in the description and go to this URL. And I stress it because, guys, for the first time ever, we've made it free. We've made it free for you guys to actually be able to download the source code. And we've done this because we're in partnership with Microsoft. So aka.ms/Sunny, head over here, simply fill this out, and I promise you, by hitting submit, you're actually really supporting the Papa Fam. If you hit skip, you're not going to get all the additional information that we want you to get, right? So fill in this information. If you haven't got a company, simply put NA. Doesn't make a difference. It takes you like literally a minute, 30 seconds to fill this out. Hit submit, and then once you've done that, you'll get this. You'll get a nice email with all the resources for free. And then I need you to go to GitHub repo, and you can get all the code for this project. Everything that I did today is available in that repo. It's available in the public GitHub repo as well, but it's also going to be here for free, and you can actually go ahead and use that. So you just need to submit that form, okay? Submit that form, and it's awesome. So I really need you to do that, and it's going to help push us to be able to do more videos just like this with Microsoft and collab and that awesome stuff. Without further ado, let's deploy this to Vercel. All right, so let's go ahead and deploy this to Vercel right now. So heading over to Vercel, what we need to do is, remember, we've got two things now, because we have over here our local environment file, okay? So the environment.local file, the environment local file here, we actually need to upload these environment variables to Vercel, but I'll show you a nice quick way to do it, right? So what I like to do is very simply go to my let's actually make this a little bit neater. Let's go here, let's pull this over here, and we have our AI. Remember, you're going to get confused at times because 1 minute you might be in Azure, and then this means you're at your Azure function, your Azure project nested inside, and then you got to come up to do your dependency management here as well. Thank you, Marius. He goes, I already did it. Amazing stuff. And I'll show you a little neat trick with the house afterwards if you stick around after this deployment. If we hit 600 likes, I'll show you the smart house. All right now, I'll show you on the live stream. Okay, so at this point, and if you're watching the replay, this video is getting thousands of likes at some point. It's amazing. All right, so at this point, now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and type in Vercel. And Vercel, if you haven't already installed the Vercel CLI tools, all you have to do is type in Vercel CLI, and it will have very simple instructions to install it. You type in Vercel. If you're not logged in, it will make you log in. Here I just say set up and deploy, yes. And then what scope do you want to do? So I'm actually going to do it to Sunny Sanga's team. So I've got a pro account as well. So I'm going to do a Sunny Sanga's team, link to an existing project. I'm going to say no for now. What's your project's name? There you go. In which directory is your code located? It's in this one right here. And also, guys, if you haven't already signed up to Vercel, then make sure you need to send me. Right, if you haven't already signed up to Vercel, I'll be sharing a link shortly, and make sure you use that link because that's going to help you out a ton with getting signed up to Vercel. So in this case, in which directory? So you hit enter on that, setting up the project. Now this will upload your code. Now this is going to fail, right? I'll show you why. So firstly you click enter, okay, that's fine. This is going to fail because we haven't uploaded our environment file variables yet. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to my AI image generator build, go here, and right now I'm trying out the pro features. We go to our settings, go to our environment variables, and you can see we don't have environment variables. So the easiest way of doing this is you simply go into your environment variables. I'm going to invalidate my key anyway, so I don't care. Environment, copy your environment variables, and then you simply go here and paste. And then you click production, preview, development, whatever one you want to do it for, click save. And then what you can do is go to your deployments, cancel this one, right? Oh, so it's actually already finished anyway. But basically, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in Vercel, and this will work because now you're going to redeploy it to production, or no, it's not going to deploy to production, but it's going to, oh, it did do it here as well. But it's going to redeploy this now with your environment variables. Now, remember, if you haven't already signed up to Vercel, then I highly recommend you use this link, links.papareact.com/Vercel. So make sure you go check it out if you haven't already, and you're going to get a free bunch of stuff when you do this way. So if you haven't already got a pro account or you haven't got an account with Vercel, then definitely go check it out at links.papareact.com/Vercel. Okay, so that is, I'm just going to add it on the screen so it's super easy for you guys to read. So it's links.papareact.com/Vercel. Again, you're supporting the Papa fam. It helps us out a ton, and it always, it's always awesome to have you guys support us out. And even same with the Microsoft link, that's going to help us do more videos like this. So that's why we're just honest with you. We tell you that it helps us out, and yeah. So in this case, we've got the preview link. You can deploy to production by simply running Vercel --prod, which is what I'm going to do here. And this will deploy to production. And then we can actually go ahead and see. And you guys can literally use this app right now, right? So I'm going to show you in a second. And then I want you to destroy the like button so that way we can really end this with a nice bang on the stream. It's been an incredible build. We've done so much in this build. And yeah, Bytebound says, throw the URL in the chat. Was done keen to test it. You know I will, dude. You absolutely know I will. So in this case, let's see if it worked. And we've got everything. Oh, look, ChatGPT is thinking of a suggestion. Let's go. Let's work. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about. Amazing. Bam. Go check it out, guys. Right now, that is deployed. That is live. I'm going to hopefully assume that DALL 2 don't go crazy with drawing some dodgy stuff, but I want to see if people are adding it in. So obviously, if you're adding images in, I need to refresh on my side because it's not a WebSocket connection, but I'm going to check. So feel free now to test that out for yourself, and I want to see if images actually come in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and keep on adding a few images as well. So a new suggestion, let's just type it in, and then we should start seeing things. Oh, someone did it. Look, someone did it. Yeah, that was someone else. That wasn't me. Let's do it again. So someone, there we go. Look, hey, there we go, guys. Look, Cat Girl Love, creating a city skyline in 4K resolution. Let's go, guys. Family of 3, creating modern abstract. Oh, wow, that's crazy. This is so cool. Jay said he did one as well. Oh, look at this. Oh my God. Oh, this is so cool. So what do you guys think? Absolutely cool, right? Amazing stuff. Destroy that like button. if you're enjoying this build right now. Look at that. Everyone's loving it. Lion wearing a crown. That's what I'm talking about. I think the cat one, Picha. I don't know. I had a feeling. Lion emoji with ice cream. This is so cool. But look at that. Wow, look how good that is. That's incredible. But yeah, you guys have tried it for yourself. You can see for yourself that it works. That is really cool. I will be invalidating the key, otherwise I'm going to exhaust all my quota very shortly. But I hope you have enjoyed the build. Let's just dive through some of the tech right now to see what we actually achieved. And look at that, people are coming in clutch with these videos, with these pictures. It just keeps on going. So cool to see. And I think you guys love to see when you can actually play around with a live demo at the end of it, deployed. Everything works, Azure Functions, all that good stuff. So let's dive into what we actually did today, okay? Let's go ahead and give a quick breakdown so that way we can really understand the benefit of today's build. And if you're gonna watch it back in time later on, that you know what you're getting into. So in today's video, we covered Next.js 13.2. That is big. That has roots, new awesome stuff, SEO. It even has a way of checking dynamic links, so you make sure you're not actually linking the person to a wrong page. We have used Microsoft Azure, so we used the Azure Functions, scalable cloud functions. You can use them wherever you like. Today we built a number of them, and we were able to set it all up with ease using the Azure extensions. Incredible, right? Really easy, and probably the best integration that I've seen for our backend into VS Code, most probably because it's Microsoft to Microsoft. So really, really awesome stuff. We actually went ahead and used the Blob storage to go ahead and store all of the beautiful images. The stuff that you're doing right now is happening and being stored through Azure Functions and Blob storage through Microsoft Azure services. We have DALL 2 producing these images, which is absolutely fantastic, right? Look at that. Oh, wow. So many things. Sunny Sanger doing a soo. That's cool. Look at this. It's so funny. Yeah, and yeah, so many things. Oh wow, that's so cool. Someone goes, make an oil canvas that says "Thank you, Sunny" written on a beach. It tried it. It says Sony. That's so funny, right? And then we have things like ChatGPT behind the scenes, DALL 2 behind the scenes working its magic. We have TypeScript. We're deploying with Vercel. And yeah, the list goes on. And we used useSWR to efficiently update what you're seeing on the page, right? So cool. We produced a low coupled app, and it's scalable. It's just got millions of users tomorrow. It's gonna work, right? It's gonna work. The only thing that'll probably limit you is OpenAI. You'd have to just add a billing thing to that, because eventually you're gonna hit a quota in there. But otherwise, this has been incredible. As always, guys, I hope you enjoyed the build. And I wanna stress one more time that if you want the code for today's build, firstly, smash the thumbs up button and then go to this link, aka.ms/Sunny. Microsoft are literally checking this link to make sure that you guys have submitted it. I want to show them that the Papa Fam is here to represent, and I want you guys to benefit from that free code. So literally fill it out, hit submit, don't skip it, because if you skip it, honestly, it's going to help support the Papa Fam a lot. Go to this link and yeah, GitHub repo for the project. You get it for free. And if you do want to check out and learn more with me and code with me on a regular basis, then check out Zero to Full Stack Hero. The link is in that description as well. And you guys can feel free to learn with us. So Zero to Full Stack Hero, we have our amazing course and our amazing community. And yeah, so papareact.com/course. We're adding in new module content every single week. Every single week, I'm literally shooting content. I'm in coaching calls. I'm doing stuff. I'm working. So if you want to learn and you want to elevate to some seriously awesome level, check us out. And we're literally a family of developers. This energy all the time. That's it. That's what we're about. I love and appreciate every single one of you. With that said, I'm going to wrap up the only way that we know how to do it on this channel, through the Papa Fam energy, through the Papa Fam anthem. This has been awesome, guys. We built such a cool app today. And yeah, I'm so proud that we all kind of stuck together and through this app. We had loads of debugging opportunities, loads of things that were happening. I'm going to read your comments as we tune out. Alexandru says, great build. Thank you, Sunny. He goes, someone try with Sunny's name. Sunny cross Microsoft Azure. Yes, this was our first ever Microsoft Azure collaboration with Microsoft. Incredible. Papa Fam's hitting new heights. It's incredible, honestly. Natasha says, thanks a lot. Thank you, Natasha, for being awesome. We've got Godlike, Zoro, Gabenga. Thank you so much. He goes, this build was awesome. And we have Zotan. Big thank you to Sunny and Jay. You guys are absolutely welcome. It's my pleasure to be able to teach you every single time we come on this stream. And I hope to God that I'm helping some of you become better developers and build your career or your dream career in that field, right? With that said, This is your boy Papa React, and I will see you in the next video. Peace. So cool to see. Frank, Simon, Patty, Vera, Alexandru, David L. Incredible support. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.